Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting. I'll just read the announcements first of all. If you do hear the fire alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exits, which are clearly marked, and please do ensure that your mobile phones or any other devices are switched off or on silent. The meeting is going to be filmed for live and subsequent broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed. If this presents any difficulty, please inform Democratic Services. And I remind you, if you are speak as close as possible to the microphone and speak loudly and clearly, it's natural to want to turn to face others while speaking, but this does affect the sound quality. If you do wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for an invitation from the chair. And do remember to turn your microphone off when you finish speaking. And when referring to a specific report page or slide, do mention the report page or slide. We've got a very long agenda tonight, and so that everyone has a clear understanding of what's being discussed. And a reminder that all district councillors are invited to attend the district council count, which is taking place at Stratford Park on Saturday, the 4th of May at 9 a.m. And please do email Democratic Services if you're not standing for re-election, but would still like to attend. And I will also just extend a welcome to Kai Bangbola, who's, you'll see, the father of Zayn, and that will become clear as we go to the motion. But thank you very much for attending. You're very warmly welcome in the council chamber this evening. Just a little bit before we start the agenda tonight, you may have noticed we've got 3 people seated in front of you. So a welcome to Tara Skidmore, Kirsty Hussain and Connor Ward, who are just going to briefly explain about how the District Council has been awarded the Best Social Housing Retrofit-led programme. So please, a little explanation from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all delighted here tonight to be with you to share some great news that on the 5th of March, Stroud District Council won the Best Social Housing Retrofit-led programme. This is an excellent achievement and recognises our professionalism across the retrofit area, including applying for and delivering phases of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, the demonstrator, Wave 1 and Wave 2.1, and you'll see on the slideshow behind you some highlights of those programmes. I have asked Connor Ward tonight to come along and share some words of why the judges chose Stroud District Council to win this award. Connor is our Carbon Reduction and Sustainability Officer here at Stroud, and he delivers these programmes daily.
Thanks, Tara. So these are the words that the judges gave to us when we picked up the award. Your unwavering excellence, commitment to past 2035 and leadership in the UK's retrofit industry have truly set you apart. Having celebrated your accomplishments on the main stage, your work stands as an inspiration, establishing a benchmark for others in the industry to aspire to. This award is a testament to your dedication and outstanding contribution to the retrofit sector. We believe it will serve as a catalyst, propelling you to make an even greater impact in 2024 and beyond. Once again, congratulations on this remarkable achievement. We look forward to witnessing your continued success and collaboration in shaping the future of sustainable housing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think we should give them an applause for everyone in that. Obviously, I know there's a team of officers behind you, and I know a lot of all councillors in the chamber who've been very supportive of this, so that's really welcome. Thank you very much for attending. You don't need to stay there at the front there if you want, so thank you. I'll move on to apologies now. And so we have apologies for absence from councillors Hind, Ryder, Ross, Tucker, Hoskin, Davis and Fryer. Please raise your hand if there are any further apologies. Yes, Councillor Davis.
Chair, and you went through those quite quickly, but Lindsay Green, Jill Oxley, Dave Mossman and Victoria Gray. I think you had Mark Ryder and Trina Davis already.
Yeah, thank you. Any other apologies? Yes. Laurie Davis, yes. Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. All right. And moving on to declaration of interest. Please raise your hand if you have any declarations of interest. No. Okay. All right. I'll move on now to the minutes of the 22nd of February. And I have been advised of an error in the minutes for the appointment of Martin Brown as the Vice Chair of Council, which should have listed the term as 2023 to 4 instead of 24 to 5, and Democratic Services have confirmed this has now been amended. So please raise your hand if you're happy to support the adoption of the minutes. Could you please ask them just what their cards? Okay. Apparently, can you just double check you've actually got your cards inserted into the machine, just to be sure? Thank you. So that minute, those were passed. I'll just sign those. 2 copies, okay. What's the date? So it's 25th. Thank you. Okay, moving on to announcements now. I'd just like to remind councillors, the monitoring officer has asked me to remind you that we are now in the pre-election period. We're extremely close to the election next week. And while there is no restriction on normal debate, they would be grateful if any political comments could be measured with the avoidance of any overtly party political references, please. As some of you may have noticed, we're discussing a report further down the agenda for the appointment of a monitoring officer. Sadly, it's Claire Hughes' final week with us at Stroud. I'm sure you'd all like to join me in thanking Claire for her knowledge and support over the last few years. She's been a real asset to the council, and I think we'd all like to wish her well in her role at Cheltenham Borough Council. Thank you, Claire. So, some of you may have been receiving your commemorative paperweights, and quite a large number of councillors are not standing for re-election next week on Thursday the 2nd of May. And on behalf of everyone here, I would really like to thank you all for your service and dedication to the council and our communities during your time as Stroud District councillors, and obviously for those who are absent tonight as well. What's quite impressive, of the 20 councillors who are not seeking re-election, they've between them collected over 215 years of experience as district councillors. So I think that's quite an impressive service from everyone across the chamber, who everyone has contributed in many different ways. And we have been giving out the paperweights, myself and Cathy, this evening, to all those councillors who aren't seeking re-election. And of course, sadly, we don't know who's going to get elected on the 2nd of May. So if by any chance, sadly, you don't get re-elected, then you will also receive a paperweight in case you don't miss out there. I would just like to say a very special thanks to our independent councillors who sadly aren't here this evening. Councillor Chris Bryan, who was first elected in May 1995, one of our longest standing councillors, and also Councillor Laurie Davis, who was elected in May 2021. I was very pleased to work alongside both of them in many different roles, and we're very sorry to see that they're stepping down. And I'm going to invite in turn each of the group leaders to say a few words. So I'll start off with Catherine Braun as leader of the Green Group. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say a big thank you to all councillors. As the Chair has mentioned, there are many councillors standing down at the elections, and it's quite interesting to hear there are over 2 centuries of experience between them. So particularly to thank them for their service to their communities and commitment to the district. And from my own group, I'd like to mention just 2 members of the Green Group who are not with us this evening. Chris Jockle can't be with us because he has other commitments this evening, but he will be standing down. Chris has been a committed member for Chalford for the last 3 years and is a member of both Housing Committee and Audit and Standards Committee. And I'd like to thank him for sharing his knowledge from his professional experience and his real passion for social justice, which has always shone through in his contributions during council debates. I'd also like to very briefly remember the member of the Green Group who's no longer with us, Councillor Norman Kay, who very sadly and suddenly passed away in December last year, and who we paid tribute to at the council meeting before Christmas. Norman had been a chair and vice chair of this council, and as we discussed in December, had a distinguished record of service to Nailsworth and Horsley, as well as Stroud District, on a whole range of issues, from equalities to housing and environment. This evening, I'm also sad to be saying goodbye to 3 members of the Alliance leadership team who will not be standing for re-election. Independent Left Councillor and Chair of Housing Committee, Councillor Matty Ross, Lib Dem Group Leader, Councillor Ken Tucker, an Independent Left Group Leader and Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Natalie Bennett. So firstly, for Matty, unfortunately she can't be here with us this evening, so I'm pleased that we did manage to say a thank you and goodbye to her at the Housing Committee meeting, just to thank Matty for her real commitment to housing since she was first elected to the council over 20 years ago, and really for speaking up for all those people who have housing need in our district. So a big thank you and appreciation to Matty for her commitment all this time, and I'm sure we will very much miss her on the council. Unfortunately, Ken Tucker can't be with us this evening as he's been unwell this week, so we do wish him a very speedy recovery. As a fellow ward councillor, I'm very aware of the huge commitment that Ken has made to supporting local residents in the Wootton ward, always being attentive and responsive to local issues, whatever they may be. And at Stroud District Council, Ken has been a core member of the Community Services and Licensing Committee for many years, as well as a member of the Licensing Panel and a member of the Strategy and Resources Committee too. As group leader, Ken had numerous other jobs which involved going to working groups and boards on strategic issues, and we will really miss his insight and wish him a happy retirement from the council. Finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to Deputy Leader of the Council, Natalie Bennett. So Natalie has only been a councillor for the last 3 years, but she has certainly made her mark. She's been actively involved in equalities issues, housing, community work, and has helped to share the council leader workload with me, which I have very much appreciated, going to additional meetings and taking on extra commitments. Natalie is, of course, an active member in other ways on the Strategy and Resources Committee and Housing Committee, chair of Equality, Diversity, Inclusion and Equity Working Group, a mental health champion, and the council's representative on the local branch of Home Start, which supports families with young children. Soon after being elected, Natalie took on the challenge of chairing the panel for the review of street, building names and monuments in the Stroud district. She showed great courage and skill in leading this review to a conclusion with extensive community consultation and engagement, which, as we all remember, drew considerable national as well as local press attention and scrutiny. I'm very pleased to see the work of the Community Engagement Task Force, which was initiated through this review panel, is now coming to fruition, with one of the outcomes being a new short film to celebrate the equality, diversity and inclusion of our communities across the district. Natalie also showed great personal commitment to the work of the council and to maintaining our cooperative ways of working when she agreed to become independent left group leader and deputy leader of the council a couple of years ago. Very much enjoyed working alongside Natalie in her role as deputy leader. She's got great insight and understanding of her brief, great people skills, and it's always a pleasure working with her. I wish her every success when she steps down from being a councillor. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the Youth Council who've supported our work over the last term, and to all the other Alliance colleagues and other colleagues who will be stepping down this year, and to the council officers who work so hard to support us councillors with delivering the council plan and statutory duties and generally helping us to resolve issues in our wards. Particularly I'd like to thank Kathy, the strategic directors and the brilliant democratic services team who are without fail supportive and helpful to all councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I'd like to invite Stephen Davis as Deputy Leader of the Conservative Group. Unfortunately, Councillor Green isn't able to be here this evening. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. And the words I'm going to read are the ones that Lindsay wrote. She wanted me to read these out. Obviously, I would agree with all of them, and I may embellish some of them. So where do we start? We start with John Jones, who actually I've just learnt 22 years as a councillor. And John has always been the voice of reason for me, plus we share a wicked sense of humour in equal measure. He's probably looking forward to not having me phoning him all of the time, but I'm afraid to say, sorry, John, I will be calling you and your wisdom and light-hearted humour. So Lindsay will be calling you. I'd like to add, actually, because John is my fellow ward member, and we are the dream team. The Berkeley team think they are, but we are. It's that combination of wisdom that John brings and whatever I bring to the party. Next, I'd come on to Keith Pearson. Lindsay goes on to say, Keith has been a fountain of knowledge across the council for me, always striving for high standards that has benefited us all. I have on many occasions called Keith to ask his opinion on matters, as we all know that Keith is not one to mince his words or stay silent on things, which I've always appreciated. Thank you for all the help in keeping me in check. Actually, we could fill the entire section here with Keith's achievements. He's been on council for 18 years, but would highlight that he has been deputy leader of this council. He's been a cabinet member when we used to have a cabinet system, and really was a huge force behind the canal project. Next on our list, if you notice there's a theme here going longest serving. Hayden Sutton. Hayden has always given a unique perspective to council matters in our group and has often helped me to see between the lines that I may not have done so otherwise. Hayden, please feel free to let me know your thoughts at any time. And Hayden is such a local councillor. I think we all acknowledge there are local councillors and there are those of us more politically motivated, but the people who just work for their community, and I would highlight Hayden as that. Trina Davis, I'm so proud of you and what you've achieved in your time as councillor, but most of all, I've gained a great friend and I'll miss you dearly. I have to let you into a secret. Trina didn't expect to get elected last time round and has turned out to be one of our best local councillors around and done a fantastic job. Julie Job. Julie, I valued your contribution and help and support so much over the last few years, and I hope that you now get the opportunity to slow down a bit and enjoy life with your family. Dave Mossman. I know in the last few years that Dave has suffered from ill health, but he has still remained an integral part of our group by continuing to contribute and still working for his community, even from a hospital bed at times. Dave, I hope your health improves and you can sit back knowing you've made a difference. I have to say I've worked closely with Dave, and in his day he was a formidable campaigner on issues ranging from energy from waste facility, on which we might not have agreed, but also local planning issues around his area. Nick Hurst. Nick, your knowledge and ability to question everything without questioning everything is a rare quality, and one that I know the group and other members will also miss. Our uniqueness across the chamber is a benefit to all of us, and I also know that you're keeping a beady eye on the Brimscombe Port development as it progresses. Thank you for your hard work on this. Again, I think we'd all acknowledge Nick's incredible contribution when it comes to matters planning and Brimscombe Port. She did write something about me, but actually my future is dependent on the good people of Bisley, so I'm not reading that one. Gordon Craig and Hayden Jones, they like to think they're the dream team, but that's not true. The two councillors who made me a councillor that I am today, without the support of you both, I would not be where I am and have the knowledge that I do, and we would not have made the difference that we have together in the biggest and most beautiful ward in the district. Again, I think some of us would beg to differ, but anyway. Gordon, we have had many long conversations over ward and council matters, and you have made me see things differently, which is good decision making. Hayden, I think it's safe to say everyone here will miss your extensive planning knowledge and understanding of the complexities that surround planning. We've also had our own opinions on certain things, but I think we've always worked well together as a team. After all, you're the reason I'm here as a councillor. I'll blame you for me having to write this. So for all those councillors across the chamber who are standing down this year, it has been a pleasure to work alongside you all. We may differ in political opinions, but we're all just people here with the same objective to make our areas the best they can be. There will be a lot of years' experience leaving us this time, and that will be sorely missed. But the future will hopefully bring a fresh new perspective to the council with new faces, opinions and ideas. Thank you everyone, and I wish you all well. One last quick note for Ken Tucker from the Conservative group. We would like to wish you a very speedy recovery, and you will be missed. Get well soon, Ken.
Thank you very much. Councillor Layfield, as leader of the Community Independents.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pay tribute to my colleagues, my comrades in the Community Independents, who have each played such a key role in this cooperative alliance. Colin Fryer, who taught me that you don't always have to shout to be heard. Trevor Hall, who taught me the true meaning of solidarity and whose fiery outbursts in this chamber we shall all dearly miss, I'm sure. My hero, Trevor. And of course, Doina Cornell, who's always been an inspirational leader, showing us all how to build a collaborative politics based on mutual respect. I wasn't always an independent, and I'd like to also recognise the contributions of former colleagues Jessie and Laurie, of Natalie and Matty, and Chris Bryan. He had such a powerful way of speaking to this chamber, and I think we'll all miss that too. And finally, I'd just like to say, not everyone has what it takes to be a councillor, but I feel very honoured to have worked alongside some of the very best. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson, leader of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Chair. As the current Labour group, I'm not going to actually say anything about anybody because at the moment we have not got anybody leaving us I know we're a very small group now, but we've got nobody leaving us, so nobody is standing down. I would like to thank current members and officers for their support over this period. It's not been easy over the last few years, but I would just like to say thank you very much. There are councillors here today who've worked tirelessly for the Stroud district, not only in their own wards, but really across the district. Those former Labour members. Sterling work which has been carried out for our residents in the area, and we will never forget that. We've all worked together for our area, and they will be a hard act to follow. I really wish everybody who is retiring the very best, and I hope that they enjoy summer evenings sat with a G&T in their garden rather than sat in here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Sounds like an excellent idea. I'll ask Councillor Natalie Bennett, Leader of the Independent Left, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd like to thank all the members of my current group, all the current members of my group, the awesome women that make up the Independent Left group at this time. We're all standing down, so the Independent Left group will be no more, which is sad because I think we've been through some difficult times together, and we've managed to keep going and support each other. And I'm really proud of the people that are in my group for giving me the support that they have as well, because it's been quite difficult for all of us. But I'd also like to particularly give my thanks to Matty. She's unfortunately not been able to come tonight because she's had to go to see a family member who's very poorly. Matty is such a strong female role model, and she's got so much expertise and knowledge as a councillor, as well as her commitment over years for keeping the need for good quality social housing in the district high on the agenda, and she's works tirelessly for that. And she's been a great representative for the people of Stonehouse, and I know she'll continue to give her time to the community that she's served so well for so long. So really, it's a shame she's not here. I mean, I've got so much respect for the way Matty stands up for what she believes in, and I really want to help her for all the support and friendship she's given me over the last 3 years as well. And I just wish the best for everybody who's standing down as well, and hope they enjoy their time not in here and have a bit more time for family and different things as well. So, but thanks for all the lovely words people have said for me as well. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Doina as well for all the, over the years, that we've worked together as well. And Kathy, thank you for your support, and all the officers actually as well. So I will miss, personally, I'll miss everybody. So thanks very much.
I'm going to ask Kathy O'Leary, who'd like to say a word about Kentucky.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say anything, George and Rich, but just to say, I spoke to Ken yesterday. He was in hospital, and he asked me to speak on his behalf and to say to all of you that across the chamber, he'd found it an absolute pleasure working with all of you as colleagues, and I think you'll know that that's heartfelt. He's very disappointed not to be here tonight, and we're very sad for him that he can't be here. But he also wanted to say thank you to all the officers at the council too, for which I'm very grateful, for all the support that they'd afforded him, and he does hope to keep in touch in his capacity at Woodton as well. But it was just a heartfelt thank you from him. I don't know if either of you wanted to add something, but I'd like to come back and say something in a moment as well.
George or Rich, would you like to? Yeah, please.
just very briefly, I actually wanted to thank Councillor Tucker, because when I first came into the council, he was the group leader then for myself, and he was a really great inspirational character, very calm, very sort of together, and sort of led me on my journey into being a councillor. Frankly, I don't think I could have done it without him, because there's a lot to do, and he really sort of showed the way. And I will argue about the amount of dream teams there are. I would say the Liberal Democrat dream team down on the south of the district obviously do a very good job there, and I would like to sort of pay tribute to Rich Wilshire here, who I've worked alongside for the last 3 years. He's been phenomenal to work with, also an inspirational chap, and will be very sorely missed by the Lib Dem group, as will obviously Ken Tucker, and we'll all miss a number of you. I myself am still standing, so I have no idea if I'll be seeing you lot again or not, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Cathy just wanted to add a word.
Yeah, thank you for indulging me, Chair. I just wanted to say on behalf of all the officers at Stroud District Council, what an absolute pleasure it has been to work with all those of you who are standing down. It's been a privilege from my perspective. I've worked with many of you extremely closely. Group leaders that I won't be seeing anymore, thank you so much for everything that you've done for the council, but in particular for the service that you have shown the council and your communities. It is very much appreciated, and on behalf of the officers, thank you. And I can't go any further without saying, of course, it is Claire's last night, and a huge thank you to Claire for the support that she's shown me and all of you as councillors in this last 18 months, and I have really appreciated it. And I'm sure that we would all wish Claire the best in her very exciting new role. So thank you very much, Claire, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it takes a little while. Oh, apologies, Keith. Yes.
I'd just like, from the members' point of view, to echo what Cathy has just said about Claire. And as working with Claire on the working group for the Constitution for the last 2 years, I think she's done an excellent job, and we will, I'm sure, the future Constitution working group will have, if they have as good a time as we've had the last 2 years in getting it sorted, that would be good. I hope everything goes well for you, Claire.
Thank you. Okay. It is important to thank everyone. I'm conscious this is my final meeting as chair, and we've got an extremely long agenda to get through, so I think we'd better crack on with it now. We have no public questions, but we do have a member question from Councillor John Jones, so I invite you, Councillor Jones, to read your question.
Thank you, Chair. Some time ago, this council initiated consultations on the future of Blackboy's Clock and the figurine situated in Castle Street in Stroud as part of a wider review of street names, building names and monuments in the Stroud district. An outcome of the review, reported to and approved by full council, was to open a consultation with the owners of the building on which the Blackboy's Clock and figurine stand to progress matters further. At the same time, approval was given to consult with residents in the Blackboys area of Dursley regarding a potential street name change. So question 1, how far has the consultation with the owners of the building on which the Blackboys Clock and figurine progressed?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Natalie Bennett to respond.
Thank you, Chair. The Black Boy Clock is owned by the Black Boy Clock Trust, and at the time of the review panel, they were preparing their recommendations following the review and public consultation held in 2021. The council had not been able to engage with the trustees and were instead in correspondence with a family member. It was understood that the family member was corresponding with their family solicitor to establish ownership and succession of the trust. The family member had agreed to maintain communication with the council and update on the outcome of the conversations with their solicitor. Unfortunately, and despite efforts made by the council to engage, the family member did not follow up on this and has not responded to any further correspondence on the matter. Although this is unfortunate, another recommendation of the review panel was to establish a task force to contextualise the statue and oversee the installation of an information plaque to be situated outside Black Boy House. The work is well underway and the information plaque is due to be installed in the summer of 2024. It is hoped that the unveiling of the information plaque will be an opportunity to reignite conversations with the Black Boy Trust.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. What was the cost, or what is the cost to the council of these consultations, both in officer time and hard money?
Councillor Bennett.
The consultations took place a while ago, so there hasn't been any further work in that respect, but it involved a conversation on the telephone with the family member. What was the cost that you were questioning, sorry?
The question supplementary was, what is the cost to the council of these consultations, both in officer time and hard money?
The consultation with the family?
The cost to the council.
I mean, I think the question is around the cost of the entire consultation and around the Black Boy statue. So yes, it was, but I think Kathy, yeah. Do you want to just say that then? What you just saw with the microphone on?
Sorry, my microphone wasn't. Sorry, I thought you meant the consultation because you were asking about the consultation with the family. I thought you were referring to the cost of that. The cost of the whole consultation was actually part of the report that came to council when we presented the report in 2022. So all that information was provided then, and the decisions around that and the recommendations were agreed based on those costings. So I don't have them in front of me, but they have already been made available.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Would you like to ask your second question?
Second question is, what is the outcome of the consultation that was done on the Black Boys area of Dursley?
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. The Council worked closely with Dursley Town Council to conduct the consultation with residents of the 8 properties of Black Boys in Dursley. The consultation took place in June 2022 and letters were hand-delivered to each address by Dursley Town Council. From the 7 responses received, none of the residents actively supported a formal consultation to consider a street name change. 5 of whom stated clearly that they did not want the street name to change, and 2 others would have been happy for a formal consultation to take place if the majority supported this process. The matter was considered by Dursley Town Council Planning Committee, who requested for the matter to be closed as most residents did not want any further consultation or a change to the street name. Stroud District Council wrote to all residents of Black Boys, Dursley, in July 2022 to inform them of the outcome of the consultation and that the matter would be closed. The outcome of this consultation was reported to Council in July 2023 in the annual Equality, Diversity, Inclusion and Equity report.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
And finally, as many residents living in rural areas of the district have no idea where the Black Boys clock is or Black Boys area of Dursley is, does the cost of these consultations represent good value for money to all council taxpayers across the whole of the district, or was it just a knee-jerk reaction to events happening in other parts of the country and in America at that time?
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. The cost was not significant at that time for that consultation. And I think that if you're asking me personally, then we have to represent all people across the district. And that decision was made to carry out that consultation, which is what we did. It was agreed by council. If you're asking for my personal view, we had people working on the review panel over quite some time who put a lot of effort into that. They didn't receive any money for that. They gave up their time and I was proud to be part of that, because we actually were responding to concerns within the community, which is what we're here to do, I think. So I think it was a good use of public money, and it wasn't a significant amount. And I think I'm more concerned about the £3 billion went on the track and trace system that never worked. So maybe we could ask about that.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. So I'm going to move on to item 7 now, or 7A, which is the motion. And this is the motion on support for Zane's Law, proposed by Councillor Becky Oldham and seconded by Councillor Chloe Turner. And as I said, we're very welcome to have Zane's father's Kai Bangbola in the attendance of the meeting this evening. There has been an amendment made to the motion, and you should have in front of you a revised version. And the changes have been made to the second paragraph in the context for the motion section. I'm going to invite Councillor Oldham to present the motion, and perhaps as part of that you can explain about the amendment as well, so councillors are clear, if that's okay with you. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the motion in front of you is the final motion tonight, and I'd like to thank officers and members who've given feedback on the motion. It's only the second paragraph that's different from your original one, so I'm not going to read through that. I'd like to outline for you just briefly the national situation, the situation in our district, because this is a national motion that has profound relevance for Stroud and its residents, and the situation in my ward, and I'd invite others to share their concerns in their ward as well, whilst being mindful of our extensive agenda this evening, and then what needs to happen. So nationally, there is legislation that covers the management and monitoring of contaminated land. In particular, that's Part 2A of the Environmental Protection Act of 1990. However, there is huge regional variation because there isn't enough dedicated funding and not enough funding for local authorities to be able to fill the gaps to that national funding. Adeptus Environmental wrote that at the end of the central funding effectively brings to the end the 2A regime. However, councils still have statutory responsibilities to act, but lack the financial resources to be able to do so. This funding hole has left some councils with little option but to suspend or drastically reduce their work on contaminated land. There are far fewer contaminated land officers, and in many councils, environmental health officers have had to undertake highly specialist contaminated land work with only preliminary training. And even if the funding deficiency were to be resolved tomorrow, the historic lack of funding has led to a massive skills gap. Even the degrees that traditionally led to a career as a contaminated land officer are closing down. For example, geology. And the Nature Journal commented that the closure of these degrees and withdrawing of their funding neglect to consider the need for qualified geoscientists to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we need the national government to step up and fund and resource and vocally support this vital work. It needs more attention, and this is partly what tonight is about. We need the joists and foundations of our country to be functioning so that we ignorant citizens know nothing of it. It's like having a good IT system. It's only working when you never even think about the IT system. And meanwhile, councils all over the country are struggling to deal with this situation. Only yesterday, a BBC News article highlighting Zane's family's battle for justice outlined other examples of councils, including Runnymede, who stated of a possibly contaminated site. The former Egham experiment site is one of our many potentially contaminated sites, which, when resources and funding allow, will be investigated in order of priority. So in this district, I was shocked to learn that we have 1,700 sites that have been recognised as potentially contaminated. And according to the council's own contaminated land guide, the basis of the district's industrial heritage was the wool and textile industry, along with associated processes, so the manufacture of dyes. And in addition, the district was host to a wide variety of other industrial uses, including brickworks, gasworks, lime burning, quarrying, wire manufacture, fellmongery and tanning, board manufacture, fireworks, artificial manure, and land filling operations. These sites have to be investigated and potential mitigation work to be carried out to make them safe. And site investigations can cost hundreds of thousands of pounds, but the budget this year for contaminated land work is £2,000. And one officer remarked to me that this is about £1.30 per site. We're incredibly lucky here to have the skills and dedication of our environmental health team, and a team that are dedicated to using the specialist skills of a contaminated land officer with specific expertise. This contaminated land officer can only be hired part-time, but we're the lucky ones. She is the only one in the whole of Gloucestershire. And in my ward, the Brimscombe and Thrupp ward that I represent, Chloe and I have been working closely on a site in Brimscombe that has had waste of various genres dumped onto it. It's on the register to be investigated, and the Environment Agency have also received several reports. It's devastating for locals who moved into a once beautiful valley within the AONB, now being destroyed, as well as potentially contaminating a stream that flows into the River Frome. It's unbearable to think of the effect it's having on the flora and fauna of the land. And I've been continually, completely astonished that it's not able to be dealt with by anyone. But the funding is not there, for the council or for the EA. Funding cuts to the EA have meant a six-fold decline in enforcement actions over the past decade, with a decrease in both civil and criminal sanctions. So clearly the national situation has a very real impact for the residents of our district. So what needs to happen? It's perfectly clear what needs to happen. With the work of councillors and officers and other councillors and feedback from members, the support of Kai and our own brilliant officer team, we've put together a motion that I'm really hoping, colleagues, you can all support tonight, which is calling for more funding, more resource and more attention and support. So finally, I'd like to sincerely thank Kai for coming along tonight to hear our motion. It was good of him to travel such a long way. And I hope my colleagues tonight can both support this motion and also take their own time to look up and support the campaign for Justice for Zane, a beautiful, intelligent boy with a passion for environmental issues, taekwondo and public speaking. No family should have to go through what Zane's family have been through, and these measures, we hope, will be part of Zane's legacy to ensure that the tragedies of the future never happen. As Zane once said, people think sustainability means looking after your garden, but it's really about a bigger garden that belongs to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Davis.
Thank you for that. And this is a legitimate question. I looked on our website because you're right. The responsibility for this already rests with a district council in whatever 2A. I only saw 2 sites on there, and actually the reports that went with those 2 sites were neither clear on whether anything had been done about them or whether there was a cost associated with that. So I'm intrigued where the 1,700 comes from if we've not got them on our website, because that's a very different figure, and whether we're asking for money, money's always difficult, whether we have any idea of what the right amount of money would be to prioritise those sites and address them, not all within 12 months, say, but, you know, have you got a number in your head, or is this just a motion calling for the government to do more, which we continually hear, but is not as helpful as if we knew what that cost was?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Yeah, I also looked on the site and only saw 2. The 1,700 figure came from our meeting with officers. And so I'm not sure at what stage they then put that onto the website, but that's something that I can check out and get back to you on. In terms of the figure, it's just very difficult because per site, it depends on the remediation work that needs to be done. There was originally national funding to cover this, and that was announced that it would be ending, and it sort of ended by sort of 2015. So since that time, there has been this gap in the funding. But I think actually it would need to be worked out regionally and by specialists. And that's not me, unfortunately. But thank you for your questions.
Does anyone else have any questions? No, I can't see any. So, Councillor Turner, you're a seconder of the motion. Would you like to speak now or reserve the right? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to speak briefly, but I'd like to echo the concerns that Becky has outlined about the extent of land contamination across our district and the paucity of our resource to deal with it. That is both in terms of the current officer resource, which, though excellent and welcome, is only part-time, and the extent of the skilled workforce that is available, even if we were to expand it. Becky's touched on Stroud's rich industrial heritage, all of which has left its mark, joined by modern-day contamination from landfilling, illegal dumping and accidental spillages. In my own ward of Minchinhampton, there are both documented and anecdotal accounts of contamination, often from asbestos cement used apparently, for example, for the construction of footpaths, and chemical contamination at Aston Down from the dismantling of military equipment. Many people talk about the legacy of the Fibercrete factory in Brimscombe and where its waste might have ended up. And Becky has mentioned the site that we've been working on, where residents have expressed their extreme concerns about irresponsible behaviour on the part of the landowner and putting ecology and human health at risk. What's important now is that we take responsible and adequate action on the risk to human and ecological health across our district, bearing in mind the rapidly changing hydrology as our climate changes. My heart goes out to Zane's family and his father Kai tonight, and thank you for joining us tonight, for what they have suffered, and I know they, like us, want lessons learned. What's very clear from the discussions that have led to this motion is that current national funding for this work is woefully inadequate for an area like ours with intensive industrial heritage. And I'm grateful to Becky for so clearly articulating the ask of government, Environment Agency and this council to do their part in addressing that. I hope we can all support this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Reynolds. And
Yeah, I'd echo what my colleagues have said. It's very concerning. Worryingly, as things stand, environment protections have only got worse since leaving Brexit. Changes by the EU and the UK, changes by the EU that the UK is not following, and planned divergences from EU law will mean toxic chemicals banned in the EU would be allowed to be used in the UK. If we look at chemical regulations, 8 rules restricting the use of hazardous chemicals have been adopted by the EU since Brexit, and a further 16 are in the pipeline. The UK, however, has not banned any substances in that time, and is considering only 2 restrictions on lead ammunition and harmful substances in tattoo ink. If we look at pesticides, the UK has banned 36 harmful pesticides that have been prescribed for use in the EU. 30 of the 36 were allowed for use in the EU when the UK left on January the 31st, 2020. But since then, have been banned by the bloc, and the remaining 6 have been approved by the UK government, by the EU since then. And I haven't even talked about water quality, air pollution and recycling regulations, amongst a few. So it is really concerning. We just seem to be, environment protections just seem to be getting eroded away. I've had discussions with farmers about certain pesticides that they're using in my ward at the moment.
Point of order, Chair, please. This is sounding awfully like a political statement, and I would like to challenge whether it's applicable in the pre-election period.
I've finished anyway, but
okay, all right,
with all due respect, it's all linked to what we're talking about tonight. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Was it Councillor Watson? I wasn't sure whose hand had raised it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Becky for raising this issue. It's very poignant in my village right now. A prospective developer has disturbed some unrecorded contaminated land, bringing asbestos from the Fibercrete factory that Chloe mentioned to the surface. Everyone in the area knows that every abandoned quarry and every other cavity was filled with spoil from the cement factory in the valley. Neighbours know not to dig too deep in their own gardens and can't believe that their houses were allowed to be built there relatively recently. However, it is still number 23 on the list that Becky mentioned of well over 1,000 suspected contaminated land sites in our area waiting to be tested. The owner complete ignorance, and he is currently refusing to cap the land that he has recently breached the safe cover that was there before with his unnecessary and unsafe digging. Rain now washes that spoil down the hill towards housing, school and watercourses. On dry days, the dust blows around. And we appear powerless to do anything, despite begging the Environmental Health locally, Health and Safety Executive nationally and Environment Agency for all the reasons that Becky's elucidated. So it's a very real and a very present problem in our area because of the many factories that Chloe alluded to. I'd like to applaud and thank Zane's father for his actions in a time of devastation for him and his family. And I hope that our support here tonight helps pave the way to adequate funding for proper investigations of all these potentially dangerous sites nationwide at a much faster pace. It's vital to protect our citizens from totally preventable future tragedies. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to remind councillors that it's probably, I go back a long way, so it's probably 30 years ago that toxins were found in the Horsley stream that runs down through Nailsworth and on down. If people remember the Horsley tip, as it's fondly still known as, was about 3 times as large, and all the non-recyclables, I think everything went in there in those days, was just put into the ground in the old quarry that was 3 times the size of what's up there now. And very soon after, it's about 1.5 miles from the watercourse, and toxins were found down in Horsley in the stream. And so, you know, we do need, and then of course there was a hoo-ha, and all the refuge was then taken away to Gloucester. And then for quite a while, the tip was completely closed until it was modernised. But, you know, that happened then. It could well still be seeping through. I don't know whether it's tested these days. You know, it's a real worry. So I fully support this, and I thank our 2 councillors here for bringing it to us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Layfield.
Yeah, I'm very much in support of this as well. I think this motion neatly captures the relationship between rainfall and land and contaminated land. And I think we're seeing more and more rainfall year on year. This problem will only get worse. And I think the land needs to be tested and funding needs to be made available. So I encourage everyone to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, clearly it's a very serious problem, but I'd like to invite you to consider the bigger picture, that brownfield sites need to be developed ahead of greenfield sites. And the area is fairly full with brownfield sites, and not very many of them seem to be coming forward to a point where they actually get developed. But the easiest way of cleaning these sites up is through development. And one of the problems that I have with national governance, but also with the local plan, is that there is a lack of, I'm going to say, consideration for all of the costs which go with bringing a brownfield site forward, whether we should take a more lenient view on SIL money, on affordable housing percentages within those schemes. Certainly Brimscombe Port is currently languishing for various reasons, but the costs to clean that site up came in large part from the housing agency. And I do feel, yes, certainly national contributions to the cost of brownfield site cleanups should go forward. But if you want to take these sites out, and I do think we should, then the clearest way is to find other purposes for them in order to produce that cost, in order to be able to take the toxins out from those places. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. And I will be supporting this motion this evening, and I think we all recognise the tragedy that has brought us here this evening. It's interesting, we've had a number of debates in this chamber over the years with various connections with the district and the district council, where we end up writing to prime ministers or ministers, and I've been at times critical of the waste of our time when it doesn't affect us, but this one is different. That recognition that our website has 2 sites and there are 1,700 that we know tells us that we have a role in this. This is not just about writing a letter and asking for more money, and I will come on to that separately, but we as a district council should do more. It's a decision we can make, not tonight, but a future council after an election could make a decision to spend money on doing this. I think it's also important to understand there are laws around this. There are planning restrictions. And if we are going to spend more money, and I did say I would reference that, we do need to give some element of prioritisation. We need to understand what the worst cases are. And that is a role we can play here at the district before we demand money to solve everything, because it will not happen overnight. I think we're all realistic about that and understand that. I think it's also, and Councillor Robinson made the point, I think we are dealing, and I think actually Councillor Turner did in her bit as well, we're dealing with a legacy of ignorance from a different age. And we are cleaning that up. It wasn't intentional that people did that pollution. I have to confess my father-in-law worked for a company that did large amounts of the dumping of landfill in this region. And as I drive around with him, he points out areas where, landfill was dumped by the company he worked for. They didn't do it maliciously. They didn't see or understand the harm. We, as this more enlightened time, need to fix that. But this will not happen quickly or easily. And we, as a district council, do have a role to help identify and prioritise and cost those improvements. But I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tipper.
Thank you, Chair. About 40 years ago, I redeveloped a garage in Stonehouse. Before the redevelopment was could be started, the contractor, through me, had to ship the top 6 inches of soil through from the site down to, I believe it was Fourfield, for the soil to be burnt and to get rid of all the contaminants in the soil itself. So on that basis, as I said, that's about 1985, 86. And what I'm asking is, how on earth these toxins and contaminants got into or were allowed to be buried in such places as water could run through it and that sort of thing. Was that in the hands of Stroud District Council? Should we have done better than to allow that to happen? I beg the question.
Thank you, Councillor Tipper. I can't see anyone else indicating to contribute, so I'm going to ask Councillor Oldham to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. I think everyone's heard enough from me already. I just wanted to thank everyone for their contributions tonight. I'm really glad to hear that there is support from across the chamber for this. It is vital work, and as Councillor Davis said, there is more to do, definitely. This is just the start. So thank you, everybody, and hope you can all support it.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to the vote now, which will be an electronic vote. So, as usual, it's 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. Oh. That's unanimous. Carried unanimously. Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. And just thank you very much, Kai, for attending. And I do hope this goes to other councils so you build more momentum. And I think we're really grateful for you raising awareness of this. I think many of us weren't aware. As you've seen, it's really relevant for our district as well. So good luck with the campaign. I think we'll be following it very closely to see how you proceed. So hopefully it will be passing into law. And this council, I think, regardless of where it goes with Parliament, I think it sounds like there's a directive for anyone who's here after the election to do some work definitely around this. So thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 8A, and as you know, unfortunately, Councillor Ross wasn't able to present this report this evening, but we're very lucky that Councillor Schumacher has stepped in at the last moment and is going to present the report. So, Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah. Good evening, fellow councillors. This is a report that's further to the unanimous Housing Committee's decision in March to add the sites at the Avenue Stinchcombe, the Knoll, Hewley and Mount Pleasant, Watton-under-Edge, to the new Homes and Regeneration Programme and progress the redevelopment of the provision for 42 APCA council homes, subject to planning permission, and noting that an update then also will be brought back to the Housing Committee as soon as is practical regarding highway safety and other key infrastructure considerations before the submission of planning applications. The committee also recommended the budget is approved by council to enable the sites to be progressed as the next phase of the new build programme. Section 1 of the report summarises the work that has been undertaken since a previous report in February, including additional pre-app advice and informal advice from GCC Highways, a tree survey at the Knoll and testing of the financial assumptions and funding requirements in the appraisals for each site. Further meetings were also held with the town and parish councils and the proposed layouts shared with them and the residents, as well as the school, who are directly impacted. Section 2 runs through each site in more detail, the current and proposed housing provision on each site and the proposed or draft layout in appendices A, B and C. The recommended layout at the Knoll gives flexibility in terms of considering opportunities to lessen the impact on the highway, improve access to the school and increase off-street parking for the school or local community. Section 4 deals with funding. Members will be aware of the significant increase in building costs which has impacted on the current phase of new build schemes throughout the district and the viability of all the sites and projects in the pipeline. These schemes need high levels of subsidy and a longer borrowing period to ensure there's no impact on the HRA revenue account from delivering them. However, by funding them, the Council would be addressing the major voids on these sites that have been held pending this review, enabling tenants and residents who do wish to move to be supported to do so. As I said already, it will be delivering up to 42 new EPCA-rated council homes. The consultation update at Section 5 sets out the main concerns that have come through the consultation undertaken to date, many of which can't be addressed until surveys are undertaken and schemes worked up, as they are an integral part of the development and planning processes. In addition to this, the Swedish timber houses are valued by the local communities, and both Stinkham and Parish Council and Uni residents believe they should be preserved. There has also been considerable concern expressed about the impact of this review and these recommendations on our dear tenants and private owners who would need to be moved. I'm glad to see that the report summarises the council policy on this, starting at paragraph 5.9, and the support that is given by the council. Moving tenants and private owners has been part of the majority of schemes in the council's new build programme, in Minchinhampton, Stroud, Leonard Stanley, Nailsworth, and more recently in Dursley, Cam and Watton-under-Edge. So in conclusion, the further work that was necessary to be able to make a firm recommendation to the committee has been undertaken for these three sites, and Housing Committee approved adding them to the new build programme. The need to address the improvement of the Swedish timber houses is ever more pressing, and refurbishment would not remove the need for ongoing higher maintenance, higher running cost to tenants, and lower energy efficiency and an even more limited lifespan. The delivery of new council-owned, energy-efficient, affordable homes remains a council and personal priority, and the need to deliver more affordable homes continues to increase. These schemes are expected to be able to deliver an increase from 16 to 42 new homes built to an EPCA, as said previously. They will be adaptable and accessible, with lower maintenance and running costs and an expected lifespan of 100 years, and make a real contribution to keep those communities alive for longer due to an increased number of residents being able to support the infrastructure that's in these various locations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Davis.
Thank you for that. When this went through Housing Committee, I'm not sure it was unanimous, by the way, but the concern we raised is that you did a consultation in Ewley, and we were concerned that it looked like so many consultations this council does. We turned up, we listened, and then we just simply ignored them. I am not happy that we take forward the Ewley site without some evidence that some action has been taken to recognise some of the concerns of the community. If that has happened, or you can prove to me has happened, I'm happy to support this, but I'm looking for evidence. I don't see any in this report.
As it states in the report, that is part of the planning processes. Yeah, and of the development processes. So every stage, we will come back to the residents and other stakeholders. Yeah, as the plans get more, and then also people can relate more to the actual layout and whatever the consequences of that are. And equally, we've said already we would come back to regarding the highways and other infrastructure challenges that obviously are. So we will do that.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
So my understanding was it would therefore come back to Housing Committee with those changes and to the issues raised in the consultation. So I'm now confused as to why we're approving this evening when it has to go back to Housing Committee for final approval of that. There's something wrong here, right? You're either making this rule and we then delegate to officers, which I'm not comfortable to do, or, as I thought we discussed at Housing Committee, it comes back to Housing Committee and the final decision is yet to be made on whether all three of these sites, because two of them seem a really good idea, but one of them is clearly causing concern in Ewley.
Maybe I should bring Alison Fisk in on this, but as far as I understand, we're just approving the budget allocation here, not the details of each scheme. So if the scheme falters for whatever reason, that money won't be spent, but we're making a budget allocation so that the development process can be taken forward.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Fisk, do you want to answer? Sorry.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that we have appointed highway consultants. As we said, we would do it at Housing Committee. So the meeting we had at Ewley, we hadn't gone to consult the residents. We were invited to a parish council meeting to hear their concerns, which we listened to. And as a result, we said we would progress those investigations straight away, which we started to do. But we do need the budget to undertake those surveys, to design the scheme up, to undertake more highway surveys, etc. So that's why we need the budget in place, so we can start the works on the site.
Councillor Davis, yeah.
So if we approve the budget, that's fine, but the spending of that budget is still a decision that will be taken to Housing Committee. If you can confirm that, then I'm happy to support this.
Yes, it says here that we will come back to the Housing Committee as soon as practical regarding highway safety and other key infrastructure considerations before the submission of planning applications. Planning application is the end of the process in a lot of ways. So we will continually stay in touch both with the Housing Committee and with the local people who are the most affected.
Just so we're clear about the financial aspect, I think the Director of Resources will just clarify for everyone.
Yeah, Councillor Shoemaker was quite correct there. I mean, Council is the ultimate decision maker on the budget. So by approving a budget tonight, you are making it available to be spent. But as the report says, Housing Committee will be considering this before any planning applications go forward. So we can approve the budget, and that allows the new build team to start the work on all of the sites. But the detail on it, then before it goes forward any further, will go to Housing Committee. But the money has been approved tonight. It means you don't have to keep going back round in an endless loop of Housing Committee approve it, and then we come back for the budget.
Thank you. Hopefully that's clear to everyone. Councillor Baxendale.
Yeah, just a quick question for the monitoring officer in my role as chair of DCC. Just if the monitoring officer could just confirm my understanding that members can vote for this in principle without having problems if they end up on DCC when planning, even when planning applications come in around predetermination. So that isn't a problem.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. You can vote on this item and still take part should applications come forward to DCC in the future.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So what I have just understood from that discussion, we are not deciding to do this in particular development in Ewley, right? We're just deciding that the money is available if it is then decided by Housing Committee and subsequently by Development Control to do it. Is that correct?
Yes. We're still in questions, so do you want to respond? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, with the microphone on. So
Yeah, so that's correct interpretation. Thank you for being so clear on that.
Thank you. Councillor Sudder Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm a little lost. If this is passed tonight, you have borrowed an extra 14.7 million on the presumption that you're going to spend it. Now, if the Ewley one does not get accepted, what part of that 14.7 million constitutes over borrowing unnecessarily required?
Councillor Schumacher, do you want to respond, or shall I allow Director of Resources to take this? Yeah.
Yes, with apologies, Councillor Schumacher, it's probably a sort of finance question, that one. So Councillor's approving the budget tonight of up to 14.7 million, and a proportion of that is borrowing. The way that our borrowing works is that it is at the point that the money is spent, which is the sort of notional borrowing. So if any of the schemes don't go forward and don't proceed, then we'll have not incurred the money. There will be no cash borrowed for this scheme in advance of any of the works being done. We don't, I mean, most of the time we sort of borrow from our own internal resources anyway, but there will not be any element of borrowing before any money is spent effectively.
In short, you can cover this with internal borrowing as has been done in the past anyway, is that right?
So it would depend on the cash flows at the particular time, and that's sort of one of the calls that I have to make. But for all of these schemes, the money that we'd be spending so far is to get to the stage where we can go to Housing Committee and give the update before planning permission. Whatever the final cost of these schemes are going to be, that's not spent until we actually do it. So as with any scheme, if we spent the stage to get to a sort of planning decision and then it doesn't proceed, then obviously we have lost that money that we spend to get there, but there will be no element of borrowing the whole cost of the scheme before we get the sort of approval to go further.
Thank you. Do we have any? Yes, Councillor.
Chair. Just got a couple of questions really. One is that if it's approved tonight in terms of the finances, does that then mean that the tenants and residents of the proposed development areas will then be sort of immediately required to or exit their properties? And then the sort of follow-up question is really, how long is it expected that once the tenants are, I know you don't like the phrase decanted, but that's a phrase that we need to use, decanted from their residence, when a new development will be available for them to potentially return? Because that is one of my concerns about the period of the gap when there is nobody going to be on the developments because, you know, they need to be redeveloped. Thank you.
Councillor Schumacher, do you want to reply?
Yeah, I bow to the greater wisdom of Alison Fisk on that.
Sorry, thank you. So no, tenants and private owners obviously aren't asked to move straight away. The first thing we do is go and meet them all and understand their individual circumstances. And then we're very much led by what those are and what their needs are. and we follow our decanting policy, whereby we make more than one offer and we keep making offers. So it's really difficult to say how long it will take. All we can say is from our experience, it can take between sort of 2 to 3 years. So unfortunately, it does take a period of time, but that's because we're led by the people who live on the site. And at some point, obviously, that has to be drawn to a conclusion so that we can proceed if indeed we can get planning for it. So yes, we do a lot to support tenants and private owners to move.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, did you want to come back? Yeah.
If I may, yes. Would there be a significant difference between the period where there could be no occupancy because the house has been redeveloped, or when they would be potentially refurbished? What are the two times? So you said 2 to 3 years for the redevelopment. What would it potentially might be if it was just a refurbishment rather than a redevelopment? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, refurbishment is quicker because we haven't had to move tenants when we've done refurbishment, but we have to go through the planning process. And I understand that when we've done that previously at the Knoll, then there were objections to that and it was withdrawn at the time. But we have obviously achieved planning permission in other areas of the district for the Swedish timber houses. So it would be quicker. I couldn't give you a definite time. That's something that Tara Skidmore's team would deal with.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Nigel Kennedy.
Sorry. The other thing that concerns me, since you've discussed the time, is what about this fellow who's private ownership, been there for ever and a day, and you want him to move out? Now, are you going to give him a direct replacement? Well, according to this lot, you're doubling the number of people on the site at least. So what incentive is there for the private owner to actually move at all? And are you going to apply compulsory purchase in order to achieve it?
Councillor Schumacher, do you want to take that?
Over to Alison Fisk again.
So private owners, again, that's also set out in our decanting policy, but obviously through legislation, they're offered market value and other heads of claim, if you like, that we follow. And we try to negotiate those acquisitions. And for all our previous sites, we have been successful in doing that. Obviously, I can't predict what will happen with these private owners. Some want to sell, some don't want to sell to start with. And ultimately, we have compulsory purchase powers, but clearly they're a power of last resort, and we don't want to use them if we can avoid it. And that would need a decision by council in any event, so we'd be coming back to members on that.
Thank you, and thank you, Alison, for stepping in there. Councillor Pearcey.
Sorry, one final question. One of the residents has been a tenant for, I think, at least 40 years, if not longer, and therefore lived in the village all that time. It will be very disruptive and stressful for them to have to decant somewhere else, and it is likely that would have to be outside of the village because just a number of social housing units that within Ewley. Could I have the assurances that every effort will be made to rehouse them, hopefully in Ewley, or at least ensure that the stress that they will go through is minimised and they get all the support that they need to do that? Thank you.
Councillor Pearcey, I think we should be very mindful of discussing identifiable individuals in the council chamber, and perhaps that could be taken offline as an individual case for your ward. I think we've always have to be very sensitive around discussing individual cases, but if you're happy to have a discussion with officers around that individual, that will be probably the most appropriate, if that's okay. But unless you want to make a general point, Councillor Schumacher, or in response to that, or
I think it's always difficult to balance local and district interests, but we've got a huge housing need, and also in Ewley and in Stinchcombe and in Watton and Redge, we've got a huge housing need, and the new houses that we build be much wider variety of houses, which will then also help the village in having a wider range of residents moving in. So I think therefore this is a big step forward for Uli, for Wotnenderej and for Stinskum, as well as for the whole district.
Thank you. Do we have any? Oh, sorry, apologies. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a question for Alison, I think. The market value of one of these types of houses, would that be an adequate amount of money to purchase a new home for the people that you may wish to leave this type of houses?
Are you happy to take that question? Yeah.
We've made obviously estimates of values in the financial appraisals that we've done. Inevitably, whatever that value is, we need to then look at, the private owners may not want any support. They may go ahead and look for their own accommodation. But we do offer a generous offer over market value, because we have to recognise that we're disturbing people and moving them out of their homes when they were perfectly happy to stay. So I'm afraid until we get to talk to individuals, we don't know exactly what they want to do and what's available.
Thank you. Councillor Schumacher, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I think it's also a case with the decanting policy that they can move back. Yeah, they will have the chance to buy one of the new houses.
Thank you. I can't see, unless I've missed, no, I don't think anyone else has got any questions. Thank you very much. So I'll just read out the decision, which you've got there on the screen. Council resolves to approve the request for additional budget of £14.7 million to be funded from capital receipts, Homes England funding and borrowing as set out within the report to enable the council to continue with the next phase of the new homes and regeneration programme as recommended by the Housing Committee. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Schumacher, yes, and a seconder. Councillor Bennett, thank you. Councillor Bennett, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? No, okay. Right, so we're open for debate now. So who would wish to? Yes, Councillor Miles.
I believe the council should approve the additional budget of 14.7 million as recommended by the Housing Committee, because the planning process will consider any heritage harm and expressed by the 20th Century Society and concerns of highway issues expressed by local residents. The 42 EPC A-rated homes, which will further our climate change goals and the need to provide secure, warm homes for local people, which help to provide employment and more balanced age range for the population of our villages. I know change causes people stress and worry and concerns and are understood by all, but the housing team have gained a wealth of valuable experience in providing support in the move-in process. When I consider how many people these warm homes will provide a comfortable life over the next 100 years, I must conclude that it should be part of the planning balance. As Mr. Speck sometimes says, sometimes the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Turner and I will be aware of the schemes in Minchinhampton where some tired houses were redeveloped with significant increase in the density and numbers of people that we were able to house. However, my concern, it's not a concern actually, I think it's a principle that we should, as a council, we should be promoting timber framed housing as a solution towards climate change, because housing developers generally don't go anywhere near it because of the difficulties with mortgages. And if we are able to deliver, we should set an example, basically, is what I'm saying. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the debate? Yes, Councillor Auden.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting this motion to resolve for the additional budget, because it's ultimately about affordable homes for people in our district. I do recognise, though, it is a nuanced situation and it's really tricky. You know, there are people in their homes, and it was kind of sad to read the 20th Century Society letter. So I hope and have all faith in the officers and their brilliant work so far, that as we go forward, you know, we can work with everybody's concerns and address them. And perhaps even, you know, consider a preservation example being retained of one of the houses or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Whether it's my ignorance or what, but we don't seem to have an illustration of what these Swedish houses would look like. We've got the plans for the three sites, but we just say Swedish timber houses. Now, they're all going to look alike, or there'll be various designs in them. So, you know what I'm getting at. We haven't got an illustration in here of what these homes would look like, which I think would have a lot of influence on whether people would like them in their area or not. Thank you, Chair.
Sutton. I think we've gone past question. We're in the debate now, but I think your comments are noted. As I think we said, this will be coming back to Housing Committee for further discussion. Anyone else wish to contribute to the debate? Yes, Councillor Pearcey.
Thank you. Yes, I am a sort of little conflicted on this, in particular in relation to the proposal in Ewley as ward councillor, because I know the views of residents, and as ward councillor I need to take consideration of the reviews of residents, whether you entirely agree with them or not. I have been engaged with the council officers, Alison, Parish Council, and have taken a lot of emails directly from residents. Clearly, I'm a strong believer in we need to increase the number and provision of social housing in the district. We know, I'm conscious of the way of the waiting list. But I mean, I was thinking of whether expansion is going to be has to be in the right places, and it has to have a level of support from local residents. And I think we should need that, particularly those that may be displaced. I am concerned about the gap when there will be no tenants there because of the proposal in terms of development, full development in the area, where there'll be nobody living there. There is a great deal of affection for the timber houses, the Knoll at Ewley, and I think at the other sites as well. And, at the time they were a really advanced, sustainable solution to housing needs, way above what we were building in the UK at the time. My feeling was also always to hope for a refurbishment option, because I think that will be quicker to get people in and out, and I think it will help to preserve some of the heritage there. It's true that more people will help economically, perhaps, but there also is another argument to say that actually another 8 houses may not increase the economic situation very much, and they will still go and shop in Dursley and take all the services in Dursley using their car, because there isn't much public transport up there. As my accountant in me says, that I am concerned about the housing capital side, putting on more budget, more pressure on the housing finance. There are a number of other reasons I could go on, and I'm not so close to the other 2 proposals, but I'm not sure I can fully support the proposal at the moment, and will probably abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearcey. Anyone else wish to contribute? I don't see anyone, in which case I'll ask Councillor Bennett, the seconder, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support this. I think we need to be realistic that we are in the middle of a housing crisis. We've got people being placed out of the district as far away as Bristol. The number of households on the homeless applications is rising, and that's going to carry on. I think we need to explore every opportunity we've got to increase the number of social housing we've got in the district. It's not an easy decision. People are concerned, and it is going to be disruptive if it goes ahead. But I think we're agreeing tonight to approve the request for the additional funding so that we can move forward with it and carry it on, hopefully to be able to resolve the issues that have been and the concerns that have been raised. These houses are cold and they're not efficient with their energy, so they're expensive to heat. So I think everything we're looking at doing and improving the EPC rating to A, it's going to reduce people's bills. And I just, for me, I can't see, looking at everything, that there would be any reason not to agree this, and I hope everybody can support this. I think it's key that it gets agreed tonight so that we can move it forward. So, I fully support this and hope we can.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Schumacher, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, I think that we've listened to a fair few arguments, also from Councillor Pearcey, who has really got the welfare of the people of Ewley at heart. And I have got full confidence in our officers that the process will be as humanely and as kind to those residents as possible. But we need to look towards the future. Those even refurbished houses will only last another 40 or 50 years, if that. So we need to look forward and create more houses, and houses that will last a longer time and address a wider range of needs. So for that, I'm really keen that this moves forward and still goes then through all the consultations and all the negotiations that will come with the programme moving forward.
Thank you. We'll move to the electronic vote now. 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. Thank you. That's been carried. Thank you, councillors. We have got to 8:30. We do normally ask for a break after an hour and a half, so we're going to take a 10-minute break, but please do make sure you're back by 10 minutes. We've still got a lot to get through this evening. Thank you. Settle down, please. We've still got a lot to get through. Thank you. Right. What's the thing now? Okay, we're moving on. Councillor Layfield, thank you. Oh, okay. We're moving on to item number 9, which is a recommendation from the Strategy and Resources Committee. 9A, which is visitors car park at Ebley Mill. And I'm going to ask Catherine Braun, Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out a proposal to open up the main visitor car park at Ebley Mill to allow other members of the local community to use the car park, which is currently underused. As you will see from the report, visitor numbers to Ebley Mill have dropped by more than 60% as residents access services through other means over the recent years. The council was first approached a couple of years ago by the Greenaway Residents Association to consider allowing local residents to use the car park due to pressures around neighbouring residential areas, and they were prepared to pay to do so. We deferred deciding on this until parking patterns and usage had settled down after the COVID lockdowns, which they now have. More recently, other residents have contacted us, one of the businesses on Ebley Wharf and the county and ward councillors all asking us to allow use of this often empty car park. The urgency has increased as the County Council has confirmed a traffic regulation order which will mean double yellow lines on Westwood Road, the Greenaways Estate and Ebley Wharf, with the loss of a significant number of on-street spaces. It is proposed that the car park becomes a charging public car park so that time limits can be enforced, and that also enables residents to park overnight and at weekends for a small charge. The proposed charges match short stay tariffs in Stroud during office hours and are set out in Appendix B. Visitors to Ebley Mill and members will still be able to use the car park directly in front of the mill, free of charge, and we will be reviewing and improving the accessible spaces and signage in this area. Members can, of course, use the staff car park. If the parking spaces in front of the mill are full, it will still be possible for visitors to Ebley Mill, whether local residents or tenants or members of the council, to park in the visitor car park, provide their registration number to reception and not have to pay to park. Estimated costs are set out in Section 3, with a substantial part of the capital costs due to provision of EV chargers, which have also been requested by visitors and staff, which is in line with our plan for the rest of the district. We'll also look at introducing EV bike charging here. Officers would like to trial contactless payments here as well as cash, as this offers more choice with the decrease in people carrying and paying by cash. Season tickets will be offered but capped at 50% of spaces to allow residents to also park during the day and longer term. The proposal will support the council plan in responding to requests from the local community and providing additional customer parking for local businesses and canal visitors. It's important to charge for this car park to manage the demand and to ensure that those residents who wish to buy a permit or park locally are able to find spaces to do so. The charges will also help to recoup the capital costs and cover car park management. Strategy and Resources Committee recommended this decision, which was welcomed by the Residents Association, who said they are thrilled to have the parking spaces available to them. The paper suggests at paragraph 1.4 that the double yellow lines would be in place by the end of the financial year. But we now understand that Gloucestershire County Council is likely to implement double yellow lines at the end of June, and we anticipate that the car park being opened shortly afterwards in July or August, due to the lead-in time for pay and display machines and other works. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. The most useful piece of information is the map, but the most important bit is missing. Where are the yellow lines going to be? They could have been put on the map and we'd be easily able to follow it. The main problem with here, it's got nothing to do with residential parking other than those who live on Westwood Road, who call it a major traffic jam every day of the week. Because people trying to get in here are queuing at traffic lights because other ones can't get through. This paper assumes the County Council will paint the yellow lines, and it did state, as correctly quoted, due by the end of March. Now it's by June, then it'll be September, etc., etc. The other side of that argument also, the question I've got for you is what makes you think the people on Westwood Road are going to leave the car in that car park and walk back to their houses when at the present moment all they've got to do is walk out of the front door and get into the vehicle? We need to have enforcement with this as well. Can I have some assurance on this, please?
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
I can provide full assurance that there will be planning enforcement of the parking. Sorry. Thank you.
Can I have a repeat on that because I didn't catch it?
There will be parking enforcement in place.
That doesn't tell me, excuse me. I'm sorry that we've got parking enforcement in place in theory all over the district, but it doesn't happen very often, and there are plenty of parking problems as there are. What makes us think that this will improve the situation?
Thank you. Councillor Davis, was it a question or you wanted to respond to question? Okay, go ahead. Yes. I mean, obviously that's a county council matter for parking enforcement, but yes, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, it is worth noting actually that the leader is not able to say there will be parking enforcement because it's not a district council responsibility. But anyway, my question was slightly different. My question is on a different tone. Does this, and I'm not expecting a long or detailed answer, but does this raise the question about visitors to Ebbly Mill, and we also know the increasing number of staff working from home, that at some future point, a future council should look at whether Ebbly Mill in its current state and configuration is a viable office for this council?
I think I just replied, the matter under consideration this evening is a car park, and I think if we did want to consider office accommodation for the council, that would be a much wider discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Davis.
And we've had this before with the leader. My question was merely, would she consider looking at that in the future? It wasn't that, as I say, I was very clear. I don't want a discussion on the pros and cons of that decision today. I was merely asking the question, is it something we might look at in the future?
Certainly all options are open for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Councillor Pearce.
I'm still not sure who is going to do the enforcement, because I think this will need more enforcing for the benefit of the mill and members and visitors, etc., than out in the district itself on streets. I think this will need more enforcement. Who is going to do it here? Our security people in this building?
Chief Executive would like to comment.
Yeah, I think the Cathy O'Leary would like to make a comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the promotion, but just to clarify, on-street enforcement is a matter for the county council, and we'll be working very closely with the county council to make sure that the yellow lines are enforced, because that will be important, because otherwise what's the point in painting them? The leader is quite right, enforcement in our own car parks is a matter for the district council. So just to clarify, so it will be working very closely together, both councils, to make sure that we do the enforcement of both the car park and the yellow lines.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Pearce.
I'm sorry, that still doesn't tell me who is going to do it. Are we talking about our normal wardens that police our outside car parks? So how often will they be here? Because I do believe this will need to be enforced greater. It's been recognised that it could be an issue, which is why there's only short stay, so that people can get out and there will be spaces during the day. And therefore it's going to need enforcing more regularly. And as Councillor Kennedy just said, you can drive around in car parks for probably a month here and park for without paying. You'd probably be a good gamble that you're never going to get caught if you wanted to. So I just think that here it's going to need greater enforcement.
Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thank you. As Councillor Pearson might remember, I did recount at Strategy and Resources Committee my respect for the very efficient District Council car parking enforcement team who recently gave me a ticket. And I wasn't parked there for very long, but clearly I had overstayed the time, and I was very impressed. And I did thank the person who gave me a ticket for the efficiency with which they had provided the service, which was providing a regular turnover of cars to enable Stroud Town Centre to function effectively. So I do have every confidence in the team that they will be enforcing this car park as they do other charging car parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Studdard Kennedy.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chairman. There's another question that occurs to me. We've just been saying you're going to put EV charging points in there. Well, last time we debated it, we were talking about 10 hours for a charge. So how are we going to improve the use of the car park for everybody to use if the places are taken up with people charging electric vehicles?
I think ideally people would charge for a few hours and they would be able to pay for that, or they could charge at weekends or overnights, and that should give them plenty of time to have a top-up charge for their electric vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Pearcey.
Thank you. It was about the EV chargers. It's not in the paper. I may have missed it. Will the residents have to pay for the EV charger, or is it a free service? Thank you.
Councillor Braun, do you want to respond?
Yes, there will be a payment. I think that's being worked out with the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. The oh, sorry, now I've got to read out the decision now. Apologies. So the decision is, Council resolves to add to the capital budget the required sums for completion of the works to change the visitors' car park to a charging car park with electric vehicle charging points, subject to a decision to amend the Stroud District Council off-street parking places Consolidation Order 2010 by adding the Ebley Mill car park, as recommended by the Strategy and Resources Committee. Do you have a proposer? Councillor Braun, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bennett, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Speak now. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea and I fully support it, and I don't see really that there's anything negative about it. So I would hope everyone can support this tonight. I think it's a great way to help our residents locally. And yeah, that's all I'd like to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Davis in debate.
I would totally agree. I think this is a really good idea and a sensible use of an asset. And the questions, I think, from this side are exactly as you would expect. How will it actually work and what's the detail about it? And then I think there is an interesting question for future council about the long-term use of this building as we change the way people work and we change the way that the public interact with us. But just as a first step, I think it's simply a good idea, and we'll be supporting it.
Councillor Layfield.
Yeah, I really welcome this. It shows a bit of initiative. We're making space available. We're using it really well. We're providing a service that we know residents will welcome. In fact, I think there has been positive feedback from residents. Personally, I'm really pleased about the inclusion of e-bike charging as well, because that is useful. It's really practical. I come here and sometimes I've got a very low charge. I can't get home. I struggle to get to the ballot cells after one meeting. I had to push my bike up the hill. It's a very steep hill. So I really welcome that addition, and it's an encouragement for people to do active travel as well as to park the car. So it's just brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Thank you. Many of the people who live round here have only got one parking space per resident. That's an anomaly, perhaps, from when planning permission allowed only one parking space per resident. And so the stress that people have and some of the antisocial behaviour that goes on when people row about parking has been quite bad around here occasionally. And I've spoken to a few people and they are really glad that this is being enacted to ease the situation. They're also generally pleased and think the charges are fair and will promote churn. Also, many of the people who live in the flats will have no opportunity to fit electric points to charge electric cars, and they are going to really appreciate the charging points that we've got in the car park, so they can also buy electric cars when the opportunity comes. So I will be voting for this, and I thank the officers who've worked so hard to make it come about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in debate? Yes, Councillor Schumacher.
I mean, I hope that this is a good first step, and as Councillor Pearson says, we've got to always explore what is happening in the future. In Stroud, we now will have lit signs that tell us how many spaces there are in the car park. Could we do the same with the staff car park? Because if there's not many people there, maybe we could let some of those spaces on a first come, first served to the local residents.
Yeah, we are in debate now, but your comments noted. Councillor Miles, do you want to turn your microphone off? Sorry, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the debate? No, in which case I'll invite Councillor Braun to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. I encourage everyone to support this decision this evening. I feel like it's a good use of resources. As we've discussed, we have an empty car park. We have residents who need space for parking. There's great opportunities, as Councillor Layfield has mentioned, to trial e-bike park charging, and then to allow residents who have electric vehicles to charge their vehicles locally. Really delighted to hear from Councillor Miles about the impact that that's having on local residents and them feeling very pleased about it. The accessibility improvements as well, with wider spaces for parents and people who are disabled in the new car park, and it is really quite exciting and unusual to have residents who are thrilled about a new charging car park. So I feel like we should embrace it and vote for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Braun. We'll move to the vote now. That's passed. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to item 9B, which is the Cotswold Canal Connected Project Update. And I'm going to ask Councillor Braun again to, as Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On 7th of March 2024, the Strategy and Resources Committee resolved to endorse the revised approach to the delivery of the Cotswold Canals Connected project, taking note of the associated risks and implications, and recommend to full council this evening that we approve this revised approach. This approach has been based on the Cotswold Canals Connected Project Board and approved by the National Lottery Heritage Fund Project Board, and it's based on 5 areas. Completing the community engagement and environment programmes by the end of next year, 2025. Completing section 3 of the canal from Stonehouse to Eastington, also by the end of 2025. Submitting a monitoring and evaluation report in December 2025. Commencing works on the missing mile now that the planning application has been secured and within available budget funding, and securing the additional funding required to complete the project. This work will be done within the original National Lottery Heritage Fund budget and the funding which has been secured. The key point to note is that the budget will only enable us to complete the restoration of the canal between Stonehouse and Eastington, and that additional funds will need to be secured to complete the missing mile in connection to the canal network at Saul Junction. I can confirm that good progress is being made on the Stonehouse to Eastington section, with most of the work being done by volunteers from the Cotswold Canals Trust. I'd like to draw your attention also to Appendix A, which sets out the working with nature aspects of the project on environmental and riverfly training, creating new wetland habitat, restoring Pockets Orchard, developing more species-rich grassland, planting hedgerows, installing bird and bat boxes and benches, and much, much more. Also, please do take a look at Appendix B, the Community Engagement Progress Report, which is worthy of note and details all the activity underway with schools, heritage learning and the famous SNAC heritage archives, canal trails, outdoor interpretations, accessibility-focused events, photography competitions, the Canal Festival, developing canal ambassadors and much wider communications. Stroud District Council are represented on the project board, and members and officers will keep the Strategy and Resources Committee informed on progress. So that will include forecasted costs for the project and progress in meeting the future funding gap. So I'd like to recommend that we do accept this proposal for a revised approach to delivery of the canal project. I know that members across the chamber have been supportive for many years of the work of this council and of many other organisations to undertake canal restoration, which has such huge benefits for the environment and for local communities. We're extremely grateful to Chris Mitford-Slade, Canal Project Director, and all the Stroud District Council team for finally securing this support for the phased programme of work, which allows the project to stay on track despite funding and delivery challenges. We're also very grateful to the many volunteers working with the Cotswold Canals Trust who are helping this project to be delivered on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this? Don't seem to have any questions at all. It's obviously such a comprehensive, detailed report. So I'm going to read out the decision below, which is that the Council resolves to approve the revised approach as set out in this report as recommended by the Strategy and Resources Committee. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Braun, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Turner, thank you. Councillor Turner, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right to speak?
Just speak very briefly, really. I just wanted to pay tribute, actually. So this is obviously a huge and very complicated project, and a lot of it is to do with the engineering side. But from my point of view, looking at the wildlife and nature side in particular, it's been fantastic working with the Wildlife Trust. Witnessing, for example, the scrapes creation over at Froome Bridge, which have already transformed into incredibly valuable habitat. And I just wanted to pay tribute to Anna Talbot, who is our main environmental officer, who's been helping us from the Wildlife Trust, who's actually leaving the Trust this week, but has put such an amazing effort into this project, particularly from an environmental point of view. But yes, I very much hope everyone can support this tonight, because it's a really important next phase of this fantastic project for the Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say what an incredible project this is, and thanks to the officers involved, but also the huge team of volunteers who've done much of the work. This is incredibly complicated. I get this wrong, but I sit on the Stroud Valley Canal Company board, and I'm a member of the Connected Canal Trust, and trying to get, Robin's smiling because he understands this issue, trying to understand the different parts that are involved in this project and getting them to work together and pull together is a huge undertaking, and Chris is doing a great job at making all of that happen. So I think we should call that out. I recognise also what Chloe talks about in terms of the ecological impact of this canal as we open it up and build it. This is a hugely exciting project. And it's an interesting tonight, particularly of all nights, to look at those people who are stepping down as councillors. I'm looking at Keith to my side, but I know there are others who have been intimately involved in this project from its beginning and must never have imagined that we could possibly have got this far. We are in striking distance of that last mile. We do not tonight quite know how we're going to fund and get to the last bit, but certainly working closely with it, I'm confident we will find a way through, and it may outlast a few other councillors on this council, but we will get there, and it's an exciting and really innovative project, and I welcome this report. Thank you.
Councillor Sutter Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I confess to being slightly disappointed. I expected to be on the front of a boat going through the Sapperton Tunnel in 2014. We seem to be some way off that. And when we first got the phase one, those of you who were on the council, when you remember that, we expected to be a lot further on, and as usual, fate has a habit of kissing you one minute and kicking you in the teeth the next, and the canal is a great demonstration of that. I want to congratulate the team that's still involved. I think, looking round, I'm probably the only one who was there when this started as a council project, and I look forward to its completion. I do hope we can actually get the money out of the Heritage Lottery Fund, which I have to say have been extremely tolerant given the change in targets that we've had over the years, to complete and make the join and finally complete this end of it. Having said that, there's the other half to do. You've still got to get to Inglesham, and that's quite a way off, but at least this bit might get done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Layfield, are you okay to speak now?
Thanks, yeah. I must apologise to everyone. I'm just recovering from a chest infection, so if I have to dash out the room and cough, I hope it doesn't disturb the meeting. I'd just like to echo my colleague, Councillor Davis's thoughts about this project. I've been involved with the Stroud Valley Canals Company for some time. I've started to understand the intricacies of all the organisations that partner with that. I've seen, we've inherited a huge engineering project, but there's been a bit of a shift towards nature and engagement with nature and support for nature, and that's reflected in the work on the ground, it's reflected on the work on the actual towpaths, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved as a massive collective of partners, there's GCC, there's SDC, there's the company proprietors, CCT, CCC, all these organisations participating to make this massive piece of work come to life, and it's something we should all be very proud of. So I'm really happy to see this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really going to say what's already been said, but having passed the given planning permission for the missing link at a recent Development Control Committee, and now seeing in this report the habitat creation, environmental work alongside it, the scrapes already mentioned, new wetland for wetland birds, fabulous, the whole thing, and of course the amount of volunteer that is being done by volunteers, an extraordinary thing. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Council will forgive me, Chair, but I made this point at Strategy and Resources when we discussed this. Don't let us forget that there is still a small section called Iron Mills, which, until that is completed, means that Brimscombe Port will not realise the imagination of this council. And we do need to, somewhere within the scheme of things, I don't think it's being looked at currently, but I do think that we need to start making provision for that, because it is critical, absolutely critical to the success of Brimscombe Port. And indeed, I'm not thinking we need to get as far as Inglesham, but it would be quite nice to get as far as Brimscombe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, obviously I would like to mention this particular report and fully, wholeheartedly, not surprisingly, support it. It gives me a great deal of pleasure that I shall always look back on the fact of the first 4 years of this, and walking along that canal in 2009 in January with David Marshall and Paul Coop for whatever it was, 0.8 miles from end to end, climbing over trees that were over the canal, walking in the canal bed where there is now water. So a great deal of pride in that, and I will support it, obviously. And one thing I just wanted to say, some of you who are members of the Canal Trust will have been sent an email recently pointing your way to a YouTube 25 or 35 minutes video all about the canal and what's happened and all the volunteering and what's gone on in the canal, which included reference to the Heritage Lottery Fund and all they've done for that. And I was really sad that there was not one single reference in that video to the amount of contribution that Stroud District Council has put into this since 2009, bearing in mind it would not have gone forward had we not voted to take it on in this chamber once British Waterways had pulled out. It would never have started, and that was sad. So I did write to the Cotswold Canal Trust and tried to put that right. I hope that whatever they do in the future will make some reference to the work this council and its officers have done over the last, whatever that is, 18 years or 17 years. And lastly, I would like to say, to make sure everyone fully understands, that the one person sitting in this chamber who put more work into this than just about anybody right at the beginning is Councillor Studdock Kennedy, who was involved in the whole original application to the Heritage Lottery Fund in the first place, and the huge, and it's around somewhere and Cathy has probably seen it, the amazing document that was presented to them to get the Heritage Lottery Fund money. And that gentleman sitting there was very much instrumental in that, and he should be applauded for it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the debate? I don't think so. Okay. Thank you. I'll ask the proposer to sum up now. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Very briefly, it's great to hear so many stories of involvement in the canal and all of those who have been involved right from the beginning. I think our new intake of councillors will have an exciting climb over the next couple of years as we deliver this next phase of the phased programme of work, with every expectation and hope that we will really achieve this next phase of the project beyond the work that is funded so far. So I encourage everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll go to the vote now. Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, sorry. Yes, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we shall move on now to item 10, which is the M5 Junction 14 funding, costing and design approval for the draft local plan. And I'm going to invite Councillor Chloe Turner to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report sets out the background to the now agreed pause in the examination of the draft local plan, the inspector's concerns in relation to junction 14 of the M5, and specifically junction 14, the work that needs to be undertaken to progress the draft local plan, design and costing in relation to junction 14, and the funding required to deliver the design and costing in relation to junction 14 as set out in the joint action plan. So what we're looking for here is approval of a budget of up to £100,000 for M5 junction 14 design and costings to allow the draft local plan examination to continue. I think we probably had more than adequate opportunity to explore the rationale for the pause in the examination of the local plan at the extraordinary meeting. So with members' permission, I'm going to jump to the main points of this paper, although happy to come back to other things and questions if necessary. Where this is coming from is that during the examination in public of the draft local plan, National Highways shared its view that the existing junction arrangement at junction 14 is operating at capacity at peak times. So some improvement is required in order to accommodate the forecast growth in the area. And the draft local plan does acknowledge that for some of the proposed allocated sites to come forward, upgrade will be required. As you'll recall, the inspectors have asked for these concerns to be addressed, and the joint action plan that has been agreed between us and our partners, Gloucester County Council, South Gloucestershire Council and National Highways, sets out how we go about that, and that joint action plan is on the examination library. So it is significant that junction 14 is not within the district and not within the control of the council. South Gloucestershire Council is both the highways agency and the local planning authority for where junction 14 is situated. South Gloucestershire does not itself have an interest at the moment in taking forward the design and costing because of the stage its local plan is at. It's at a much earlier stage than we are at with ours. But we are not in a position to sit and wait for South Gloucestershire to catch up. It's just normal for districts to be out of sync with each other. That's just the way the planning system works. We have been asked to get on with our joint action plan in time for the examination to resume at the start of December, and therefore we need to work with our partners to do this work now. Another material consideration is the recent developments around the Severn Edge proposals. In particular, Western Gateway have been championing Albury and Berkeley collectively as a Severn Edge low carbon energy hub ever since the unsuccessful bid to run the first commercial fusion reactor there. And two important recent developments on that front. The Albury site has been purchased by the government as part of Great British Nuclear, and there's also a government-sponsored project to bring forward small modular reactors with major industry players, including most locally Rolls-Royce. And then alongside that, we have the Berkeley campus having been sold to Chiltern Vital Group, apart from SGS College itself, or the part of it that's down there. And that consortium has a focus on low carbon energy and ambition to link up with the wider Severn Edge proposition. And Chiltern Vital Group is a consortium that itself includes Rolls-Royce and also the University of Bristol. So we've got these Western Gateway developments and Severn Edge developments, the prospect of potentially a nationally significant infrastructure project at Junction 14, and that is obviously being taken very seriously by National Highways, and they have asked South Gloucestershire Council and us to take that into account in doing work on our draft local plans. As I mentioned, South Gloucestershire Council and also National Highways are not themselves in a position to take the lead on the required works, so it is down to us to take that proactive lead in order to meet the commitments that the inspectors have asked of us and that we have agreed to meet as part of our joint action plan. We could, of course, not do this, and Section 2.8 of the report sets out the various serious risks that would come about if we chose not to. The first of those being that we would not then be able to demonstrate that we have met our commitments under the joint action plan that we've agreed with the inspectors. If we were then to withdraw the plan as a result of not meeting those commitments, we would have to start all over again with a new plan. That plan would fall under the new regulations, so a brand new regime. There would be a significant delay before any new plan came forward, and the entire of the evidence base would need to be reviewed and likely refreshed. Any new local plan, though, would still have exactly the same issues in relation to the strategic transport network and in terms of this paper in relation to Junction 14. So we wouldn't be any further forward. What we would have, though, is a new problem in that, whereas at the moment we're able to benefit from the fact that because we're in Regulation 19 stage, we can rely on a 4-year housing supply, we would fall back into the 5-year housing supply. So we would be in a less robust position from a rogue developer point of view. So and finally, there's the additional point that if we don't move forward, we are not playing the part that we've been asked to do in terms of supporting what could, as I mentioned, be a nationally significant infrastructure project in our area. So in conclusion then, the funding for this work is expected to be no more than £100,000. To the extent that it's less than that, any amounts left over would be returned to the equalisation reserve. If South Gloucestershire Council is at a later stage asked by the inspector to do work around the junction by its inspectors, then we can look to recoup proportional costs from South Gloucestershire Council. So this is really the next, the gateway to the next important step forward for our draft local plan. Hopefully it's very clear that this is part of an agreed route with our partners and with the inspectors, and that there are very significant downsides to not taking this step forward. And I hope that members will be able to support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any questions? Councillor Davis.
I've got a couple of questions, Chair, but I'll take them one at a time if that's okay with you. Has the current administration of this district council given its full-hearted support to the developments at Severn Edge for nuclear?
Thank you for the question, which I think is well outside the scope of this report, which is about Junction 14 and whether or not we progress the design and costings. Yes, I'm referring to the fact that things are happening in the area and that we have been asked by National Highways to take seriously those emerging developments. I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not we decide to fund the design and costings. We've just been asked to take it seriously because of the emerging developments. So I'm not party to those discussions and I'm not in a position to answer that question, but I don't think it has any relevance for this decision tonight.
So the leader is sitting next to you. Would the leader like to answer the question? Does this district council, under its current administration, support the development at Severn Edge as currently proposed?
I'm happy to answer the question, and I must say we have been very well informed by partners in Western Gateway. Certainly the team have been working very closely with Western Gateway. Brendan has been on the working group, which meets quarterly, I think, so we've been very well informed. We haven't been asked to take a decision. We're keen to see development that's in line with our local plan, and that has always been our key position. I took part in a little bus tour with Western Gateway. We talked about Berkeley site, we talked about other opportunities across the district. As I understand, from the latest briefing that we've had, the Children Vital Group, which relates to Berkeley within our district, is in the process of acquiring the site. It hasn't yet acquired the site, but it has been announced as the preferred buyer for that site. There is a process going through which they explained to us as well, which is in relation to small modular reactors, which Chloe has mentioned, which is something that is being actively considered, as I understand, for the Albury site. I don't know what the proposals are there, but I think the government is due to take some kind of decision about that. As far as I know, there is no specific proposal as yet for Albury, and as and when there is, we're very happy to discuss it and to take a decision. Thank you.
So there was a proposal, which I'm asked the question again. You've just said you've never been asked to support that site. Have you ever been asked to support that site for nuclear development? And have you ever withdrawn that support or not provided it?
There's no direct nuclear proposal for that site. We've not been asked.
We're in questions. I think we're just. Yeah, we're in questions. So, okay, do you want to go on to the next question?
Seeing as we're not going to get an answer to that one, though we all know the answer. Right, this is a little hypothetical, and Chloe, forgive me if you can't answer it, but I just want to work for the logic here. This is a plan to look at the potential to develop Junction 14. Is there, in the process, the possibility that we might come to the conclusion that it is unfeasible to develop 14? And if so, have we had any discussion with the inspectors about what flexibility we would have with the local plan if our 100k comes to the conclusion that 14 is not a viable option? I'm just trying to understand the options as we go forward. Thank you.
National Highways is one of the partners to the Joint Action Plan and clearly a very significant partner in terms of this precise piece of work. I think I'm very confident that National Highways might have flagged it at this point if it was not feasible that we'll be able to move forward with the upgrades. In terms of what number we get to, as part of the costing exercise, I mean, you know, clearly it will be a big number. It costs a lot of money to develop a motorway junction, but it's something that National Highways are going to do at some point, and this is just, you know, the fact that a number of different districts up and down the M5 is becoming an issue means that it's pressing up their agenda. So it's not feasible. We can't tell at this point. We don't have a crystal ball, but National Highways are a key part of the design and costing process, and we'll be looking to them to support as we go through that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. In the second part of my question, has there been any discussion with the inspectors that during this pause period, while we do this work that we're signing off 100k for tonight, how much wiggle room there is to modify the plan that we've taken forward, or how hard and fast is that?
There's been no direct discussion with the inspectors. All correspondence with the inspectors has gone through the programme officer. All of that correspondence is visible in the examination library. So no, our joint action plan was developed with our partners, sent off to the inspectors, and the inspectors have agreed the pause. And we are where we are now. We are now into the phase of delivering the joint action plan with our partners. We will do that in time for the deadline of the 5th of December. And at that point, the correspondence will resume, I assume, unless anything comes from the inspectors in the meantime. But unless, I don't know whether Tom would like to add anything to that.
No, nothing further to that. All communications with the inspectors are obviously publicly available and published online.
Councillor Davis, you finished with the questions? Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 3.4 says that SDC would look to recover costs from South Gloss in the event that they use the plans and costings that we're paying for now. Have there been any discussions with South Gloss about that? Have they agreed to that, or is that just something that we're hoping would happen?
So there have been discussions with South Gloss. As you can imagine, as a neighbouring authority, that both our officers and members have had discussions around this. In terms of being able to recoup costs, I think that is as part of the draft plan process and adjoining authorities, but over to Tom for a technical answer.
Thank you. We obviously don't have that agreement with them yet because they're at a different stage and they don't know if they will. But obviously, if they use our designs and plans, then we would look to recoup proportionally that is appropriate.
Do you think that's likely that we would get some money back from them?
So, well, I can't give you any guarantee because we don't actually have that agreement in place with them at the moment, but obviously we would follow that as strongly as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Jones next. Hayden Jones.
Thank you, Chair. After something so positive with the canal, this is slightly more contentious, obviously. Paragraph page 103, 104 about risks. I'm just concerned about the balance of this report. This isn't the only piece of it. It talks about all the risks of not doing something there. But if you go back to the communications that we've had with the inspector all along, when they wrote to us on the 4th of August, they said withdrawal may be the most appropriate way forward. On the 2nd of October last year, we feel it's only appropriate for us to highlight the possibility that following any pause, we could still be in a position of writing to advise you that withdrawing the plan remains the best option in our view. And on the 5th of February this year, we would also like to state at this stage that whilst we have agreed to a pause of the examination and will continue to adopt a pragmatic approach on its resumption, this of course cannot guarantee that the plan will ultimately be found sound. So all the risks about not doing something are in there, but the risk of spending all this money and doing this work and still being in the same position hasn't been covered. Can you comment on that?
All of the earlier comments that the inspectors have made have been superseded by the fact that they've now agreed a joint action plan with the resumption of the examination starting up at the start of December. So I don't recognise those as risks now. I accept the fact that completing the joint action plan or where we get to with it, we will still be subject to what the inspectors say, but that is true of being anywhere in the inspection process until you come out with an approved plan at the end. So we are in a much better position now. We have worked very closely with our partners. We have something we all agree on that the inspectors have agreed with. They've given us the pause that we asked for, so they clearly recognise that we have moved along a great deal. We are addressing their concerns. We're doing everything asked of us. And frankly, it would be absolute madness to walk away from this process rather than doing what everybody has agreed that we're going to do.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, you want to come back?
Sorry, I left my mic on. Thank you for that. I think it might have been superseded because I'm not sure it's going to start at the beginning of December because the inspectors refused our last request. So I think it's going to be the new year. Tom will be able to confirm that or not. If I could move on to my next question. You mentioned South Gloucestershire Council and obviously they're significant in this deal. I watched their Regulation 18 debate where they moved to Regulation 18 eventually. And the responsible person was asked why Junction 14 of the M5 didn't feature in any of their plans, lenses as they call them. And her answer was two things. It was unfunded and the plan would be blown out of the water, her words not mine, at EIP if it was included. We know something about that. And secondly, it would create damaging trans-green belt commuting and unsustainable patterns of commuting. So do you recognise those risks and are you happy to create unsustainable patterns of commuting?
Just coming first to our latest request, it wasn't actually our request for an additional couple of weeks. It came from our partners, specifically from the County Council, recognising the fact that the day you receive a letter is not the same day you can suddenly mobilise a team and get on with the project. But anyway, the inspectors chose not to honour that request from the County Council. The County Council have since confirmed that they will be able to still meet the timing deadlines. It just would have been nice to have that bit of breathing room to set up their team, but they are still going to do their part, as are we all. In terms of South Gloss, though, I haven't watched that meeting, so I haven't got the benefit of that, but they are at a far earlier stage. Their plan is still evolving. Their housing numbers, their areas of development are still very much evolving. So and now on top of everything else, we have these new developments around Albury and Berkeley, and which will it's looking increasingly likely mean that their plan, whatever it looked like now in its very draft stage, will have to evolve again. So I don't think it's really particularly useful to discuss that at this point. We have this decision to make about our plan, which is a completely different point of its evolution. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the only sensible decision we can make.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I think I had Councillor Tipper next. Councillor Tipper, did you wish to question yet?
Well, some while ago, South Gloucestershire were talking about doing something about Junction 14. And that, what I did hear, I can't actually prove it, but they talked about a full roundabout instead of the straight road that we've got. And basically, that was going to cost millions. I'm bearing in mind what the missing link has cost on the 417, and basically you're talking about 300 million to do that work. Admittedly, there's a bit more to it than what would happen at Fullfield. What scares me is that we haven't had a real description of the work that is proposed to be done. It's just been admitted that they're still in the planning stage, and they talk about costs. Frankly, I'm not going to sell anything to my residents unless I see some qualified costs from a civil engineer of how much whatever we're proposing to do is costed out, and my residents know exactly what they're going to be walking into. And frankly, I'm really scared as to the way the district council is talking about this situation. They're doing anything they can to appease the developers in the area, and they're paying for it.
I'm presuming we are in question, Councillor Tipper, so I'm presuming there was a sort
the
of
question. Is,
yes,
sorry.
what's the question? Yeah.
Okay, the question is, currently we've got planning applications in the area that are waiting to be approved, and basically my question is, will they be approved only if the infrastructure is improved in the area, which according to conversations in the previous meetings was going to take 14 to 15 years.
Councillor Turner, do you want to try and answer that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where to go with that. I mean, in relation to your point about costings, that's exactly what we're doing here. So the £100,000 is based on a quote from AECOM, who are our engineering consultants. So it is that's not just a figure from the air. It's based on what they expect this exercise of design and costing the junction improvements would be, and the outcome of that exercise will be a number or a range of how much it would cost to upgrade the junction. So that what you're wanting for your residents is exactly what we're seeking to do here. In terms of planning applications, I mean, moving forward with the draft local plan in this way ensures that we continue to be able to rely on the 4-year rather than the 5-year housing supply, and that we move in the direction that we need to move to get an approved plan. Because as I set out, if the only other option of withdrawing the plan means we go right back to the beginning, and we will inevitably be a lot further from having an approved plan, and therefore a lot further from being able to hold off development that is unappealing to the district. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Tipper, did you have a further question? Yes.
Well, I'm trying to think of a way of turning it into a question, but my question is it wouldn't it be better to actually put an actual plan and a costed plan as well, so that we can go back to our residents and give them an actual truthful and fulfilling and sustainable.
Yeah, Brian, that's exactly what this is. So we've got the agreed joint action plan, and this particular report is about costing one aspect of that. So that genuinely is what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, but there are repercussions along the way with regard to planning permissions that are already in.
Yeah, and as I've described, the applications that are in, we're much better able to defend because we're reliant on a 4-year housing supply rather than 5. And because of the way the formula operates, we are in a more robust position from staying in the Regulation 19 phase than by yanking ourselves out of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Housden next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is specifically a finance one, so probably one for Andrew. But when I look at it and you talk about £100,000 and all the things that we could spend £100,000 on actually within Stroud, and all the good things you could actually do with £100,000 in Stroud, my question really in terms of finance and probably a legislative one is, Andrew, where do we sit in terms of actually using Stroud taxpayers' money, £100,000 at least worth of it, to spend on designing and costing a scheme for another council? So are we allowed, or should we be allowed, it's probably a better question, but are we allowed to use Stroud taxpayers' money to design and cost a scheme for another council?
I think it's the chair's decision as to whether we ask it of an office first. I'm going to ask Councillor Turner first. Yeah. I'll ask Councillor Turner to respond, and if she feels necessary to refer to Andrew, then I'll come to Andrew.
I think the report makes clear why Stroud District needs this work to happen in relation to Junction 14, even though it's outside our district. But in terms of the legal position, if you look at section 4.2 and then jump about 5-6 paragraphs down, it sets out section 137 of the Local Government Act, which authorises a local council to spend money anywhere if it's in the interest of the district. And this clearly is in the interest of the district, because our local plan is not going to progress unless we satisfy the inspector's concerns, which pertain to Junction 14, because Junction 14 is sensitive to development within our district.
Alison, do you have a further question?
Yeah, thank you. If I can come back. So on that point, so if you take your answer as the specific part that you've highlighted, then by your own logic, if South Gloss Council don't support this work, which they don't, then that is not in the interest of Stroud taxpayers, because they've no interest in designing and costing the actual programme. So the question I ask again is, are we allowed to use this money of Stroud taxpayers' money to design and cost a scheme that the actual council have no interest, or have showed no interest today in actually doing?
So I'm not clear what's the relevance of whether somebody else has no interest in doing it. We want to do it. It's our money. The Localism Act allows us to spend the money elsewhere if it's in our interests. So where's the issue?
The issue is that a design and costed scheme would be South Gloss's scheme to look at. They are the local authority. So if they have no interest in looking at that scheme, should we be using our money to fund and design and cost a scheme that that local authority have no interest in actually doing? And they are the local authority that will decide whether we can or not. It's not our decision.
You can respond. I feel like you've probably already replied to this question where you've explained about where South Gloucester is currently, and they're not in a position to support or not support. I think actually you would like to come in on this so it's clear to councillors. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I'd just like to add, although it is in South Gloucester, it's actually National Highways Junction. South Gloucester has actually signed up to the Joint Action Plan, which they have approved and agreed to the actions in it. Although they're not leading on the scheme, they have signed up to the actions we're undertaking and jointly agreed that with us.
Thank you for that clarification on that. I'll go to Councillor Pearson now.
Thank you, Chair. A multi-part question, really. I assume in order to carry out get a costings and a scheme design plan, this would have to be done by consultants. And therefore, given this is the National Highways motorway, who tend to design all of their own schemes, is it not right that the possible consultant here is going to be National Highways to ensure that it conforms to all of their standards, that are quite rigorous? As we all know, if you come back down to county highways, their standards of doing certain things on roads is very, 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 very vigorous, and often can be done at less cost by other people. So is it possible that we're going to end up spending £100,000 to pay a consultant who could possibly be, and I think probably the only logical consultant, be National Highways, to design its own scheme that at some point in the future they will be responsible for paying for? Because no matter how much money we spend on a design and cost plan, if and as when that ever gets done, which if it does, then surely we are not, and I ask that question, we are not intending to fund that junction improvement. So there's a three-part question really. But firstly, will it be consultants? I think you nodded anyway. And isn't it likely that consultant will be National Highways, and therefore is it not right that we will be financing the cost of a design through the people that should be doing it in the first place?
Councillor Turner, I think Tom would be happy. Are you happy for him to take that? Yeah, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'll cover those points. In terms of how the work will be undertaken, it will be undertaken by our consultant. The brief has been agreed with National Highways. So the way National Highways operate, and I think you've got a valid point that maybe they should lead on it, but that's a debate we've had before we got here. We will use their model. So they will provide the modelling. Our consultant will run through their demands to come up with a model. So it will be them, but through the proxy of our consultant. That's just the way they operate, I'm afraid. In terms of following on from that, then, it will be what they want it to be, because they will be obviously included in every stage as well, signing off it's being done properly. Ultimately, they will be jointly producing this through us and our consultant.
Yes, Councillor Pearson, yeah.
Okay, so is it not conceivable that National Highways would actually give us what the design has to be exactly, and then all we require is a consultant quantity surveyor to tell us how much it costs?
I would totally agree. That would sound the best system, but that isn't the way National Highways operate. I'm afraid they expect us to do it and produce that, and they will review and feed into it.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton Kennedy next.
Oh, thank you. It's just a little clarity from Councillor Turner, please. I've listened carefully to your answers, and my summation of this lot is that we are invited to spend what amounts to 1% of the community charge upon a plan to take forward the examination in public, which, if I understand you correctly, now will not fail because you have a joint plan agreed by you and all the partners and the inspectors. Now, do I have that right? Because as I understood it, when the question of whether they would allow the plan to go forward or not, you stated that it would start from where they had agreed with the local plan. So logically, there should be no chance of failure. Please advise.
Councillor Turner.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the joint action plan has been agreed as the route forward for the next stage, but it's not set in stone what the result will be. As Hayden pointed out earlier, the inspectors have reserved the right to make their decision at that point, and it isn't guaranteed that there will be success because we will still be in the examination process, and so they still have, decisions to make. But this is the route that has been agreed with them, and they are happy with the joint action plan, as are all of our partners. So this is therefore the route that we need to take to progress to the next stage, where we can have a decision one way or the other about the plan.
Did you have a further question?
Well, thank you. Just very quickly, as I understand it, then we've been invited to spend £100,000 to find out, which if we put all this lot together beforehand would have already been decided. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there was a question in there, but yeah, okay.
Yes, this has been identified as a piece of additional work that the inspectors need in order to to form a view on the soundness of the plan. So yes, we did an enormous amount of work. This is one additional piece. It's all been agreed with our partners that we can do this and how we do it. And now we just need to deliver it. And like everything, it will cost money because it requires expert consultancy. But, this is what will enable the inspectors to form a view on our plan, which is what we need.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Patrick now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just popped into my head as everyone's talking about plans. Do highways require planning permission? And if they do, where do they go to get it? Because it won't be us, will it? Because it's not in our patch, so we wouldn't be the governing body dealing with planning permission.
Tom's going to take this, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. National Highways own the land around Junction 14 where any improvements will be made or changed. They will have to have agreement with South Gloss and ourselves. It will be agreed with all parties.
Cathy O'Leary wants to add something here.
So you're saying that is the planning permission. Agreed is one thing, but a planning application, as we normally do.
Do you want to let...
Sorry, hang on. I can't.
We've got a further answer for you, so do you want to...
You've got a further answer?
Yes.
Oh, so I couldn't hear without these on. Okay, yeah, sure.
Come back, and then if you've got a further follow-up... Oh, apologies, I didn't have my microphone on. Cathy O'Leary was going to add something to that, and then if that answers your question, but if not, come back after you've heard what she's got to say. Sorry about that, thank you.
So nationally significant infrastructure projects are matters that are determined by the planning inspectorate. So major applications for major infrastructure are determined by the planning inspectorate. That will include motorway junctions, other things that you might think of like quite often significant power stations, that kind of thing. But this kind of motorway junction would be an NSIPS project, so it wouldn't be for us to determine, it would be for the planning inspectorate.
Hopefully that answers your
Thank
question.
you.
Thank
That's
you.
clear better.
Councillor Tibb, you've asked questions, but I think you've already had 3 questions. So I think if anyone else has any questions to ask at this stage, I can't see anyone else indicating. I'm conscious we are getting quite close to 10, but because we had a 10-minute break, that means we have actually got until 10:10. So just so we don't need to take a vote at this point to extend the meeting. I'm going to move on now to read out the decision, which is the council resolves to approve the budget of up to £100,000 for the M5 Junction 14 design and costings to allow the draft local plan examination to continue. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Turner, thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Braun, thank you. Councillor Braun, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Okay, so then we're into debate. If anyone wishes to contribute to the debate, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm essentially a pragmatic person, and in 2 weeks' time, any decision that is made this evening will become somebody else's responsibility because I'm standing down. However, it seems to me that whatever we decide this evening on this, and much to the probably disappointment of some of my colleagues, I'm probably going to support this. The issue here is beyond making this decision, because given that Tewkesbury Borough Council took, I think it was 12 years to sort out the junction up at Ashchurch, and then you've got a construction period beyond that, we are talking about a 15-year decision here, and that affects not just the current draft local plan, but probably the next 2 local plans beyond the current one when it's finally agreed. So therefore, for me, this is a decision for the future. It gives opportunity for a wider consideration about the way the planning system can work within Stroud District Council, but I do not see a result coming out of this, apart from, as Chloe has suggested, that we can work with a 4-year housing supply rather than a 5-year housing supply. I do not see a decision coming out of this that can really impact the delivery of the draft local plan as it currently stands, because there is too much emphasis on this junction improvement, if that's how you want to consider it, this junction being able to contribute to the way in which the local plan in its current draft review is going forward. So for me, as I say, this is about making a decision for the future rather than for where we stand tonight with the local plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be cognizant of your comments about PERDA. I'll do my best, I promise. Junction 14 has become an issue, I'm afraid, because planners, Stephen Davis mentioned it earlier on, I'm afraid they ignored the consultation responses from our residents and decided to put some massive estates in an area where there's limited infrastructure, namely Junction 14. And the party that runs this council, I looked at their policy, which is quite interesting. They say they want to incentivise local authorities to spread small developments across their areas rather than building huge new estates. Well, people of Sharpness and Barclay and Slimbridge and Cam and Hardwick and Wadden even would say amen to that, but unfortunately not in Stroud, it would seem. The 5-year land supply, I accept that, but I'm afraid I think that ship has sailed. We are, as you say, we've got a little bit of protection at the moment, but we were told about this issue in March last year. 14 months down the line, we're still prevaricating, and now we're looking at a further 10 months or whatever it is. If we had taken action then, we could have been well progressed with a reform plan, because it doesn't have to go right back to the very beginning, but it would have to go back a few stages. You mentioned the Severn Edge. That is an interesting one. I am wholly supportive of nuclear power and the SMR project, as I believe most people in the Berkeley Vale are. It's been our lifeblood for employment in particular, but also power since the 1950s. But if that does come about, it would be national infrastructure, as we've heard. So why are we putting the cart before the horse? If it's national infrastructure, the government will be paying. It shouldn't be our residents that pay for it. We've talked about South Gloucester a lot. Clearly, they're really important. If you watched their debate, which I would recommend, there's a lady called Chris Wilmore, who's the lady that leads on this, cabinet member, quite an impressive lady. She was very clear. They are not interested in Junction 14 as any of their lenses, as they call them, because of the unsustainable commuting practices it would create. I thought that's what we were trying to stop doing. GCC, they may well be part of our partners in the Joint Action Plan, but they said very clearly on day one of the inspection we'd chosen the wrong strategy. I say this with no real hope or confidence, but I would encourage councillors across the chamber to join us and not agree to spend a single penny more on this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
It does feel a little frustrating that this national infrastructure spend has been put on our plate at this point, but it also doesn't sound like we've got much choice if we want to carry on with what we've been trying to do for the last few years with getting this plan through. And it also sounds rather inevitable that this junction improvement will happen with all these Severn Edge aspirations and business developments, and I don't understand why we're standing in the way of potentially facilitating big business coming to our area to provide employment to our residents. I totally agree we shouldn't be focusing on a motorway as our major infrastructure. It is the most unsustainable way of getting between home and work that I've ever heard, but unfortunately the national situation seems to be that rail and buses and other forms of transport aren't seriously considered, so this is our only option at the moment. So I will continue to support this proposal in the hope that we can recoup some of the costs of other bodies as they come along and use our plans. As Chloe's explained, there may be an opportunity to recoup some costs, but I think it's a responsible thing to do for the residents in our borough to reap borough district to reap the benefits of any industrial development that happens, as well as all the local housing issues that this came from in the first place. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Layfield.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind my colleague across the chamber that the word PERDA has fallen out of use, being linked as it is with colonialism, gendered violence and the oppression of women. The correct phrase should be pre-election period. But getting back to the point, Junction 14 is a problem. It will continue to be a problem. It will always be a problem until it's resolved, or until people stop driving altogether. I'm pessimistic about the latter option. and I fully support our council taking the lead on this and showing a practical and pragmatic commitment to getting the job done for the benefit of everyone. And if that happens to include South Gloss, that's great. But it's for the benefit of everyone in our district. That's what we're doing this for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Craig.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important that we see the big picture here. The big picture, as I see it, is simply this: that Junction 14 to us is important. It's the exit from our district south towards Bristol. To the people of South Gloucestershire, the Almondsbury interchange is important. It's the exit from South Gloucester, from Thornbury and Yate towards Bristol. The fact of the matter is, and this is the big picture, and this is how the planners will look at it, the national planners. If Junction 14 is developed and all the people who would live in the developments that this council is proposing for Winslow and for Sharpness, if they would all enter onto the M5 junction 14 on their route to employment, and literally I have to remind this council again that the direction of commute from the southern part of Stroud district is south towards Bristol. When we look at the Gloucestershire 2050 plan, it is hugely wrong. It's hugely faulted because it assumes that there's going to be a hub and spoke scenario. And of course, the very fact that the direction of commute from the south of this district is against that flow, it would in fact be, for any cyclist here, it would be the same effect as a broken spoke. So the concept is very flawed that we should encourage any further commuting south, and this plan does nothing but that. I believe that when South Gloucestershire come to consider this, that they will look at junction 14, see the extra traffic coming on there, consider what that traffic is going to do for the bigger picture, their bigger picture, which is to absolutely overwhelm the Almondsbury interchange. And they are going to say, no, this cannot happen. And I think this council should consider that before spending £100,000 of our ward members' money on something that is obviously not going to happen. I cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting, when I talk to people who are interested in becoming district councillors, one of the things I say to them is you will notice that actually we vote unanimously more often than we don't. Unfortunately, I'm going to be voting against this one this evening, which is a shame, because I like it when we're unanimous. And I don't want to rehearse the local plan argument, and I don't want to repeat things that have been said by my colleagues and very sensible and correct, but I did just want to highlight what a strange place we're in. So at DCC a couple of weeks ago, we gave planning permission for a warehouse development on Junction 12, the other junction that the inspectors don't like. We also granted 44 houses in Whitminster, not identified in our current legal local plan. Oh, but they are in the one that we're working on that has not been accepted by the inspector. Oh, and we added 4 houses. Our plan said 40, but it's okay, we'll make it 44. We are in a mess in planning. We are in a mess on our local plan, and this is just throwing more money, good money after more bad money after money that's been spent. And it is absolutely bizarre, and some of you must be looking at, and I'm going to be very careful that I don't wander into territory I'm not supposed to, but we're going to have Green Party councillors voting for a motorway junction that is supported by the potential nuclear development and against dispersal, which is their party policy. How did we get here? I'll tell you how we got here. When we saw this in March last year, we, the public, didn't see this till August. But we know that the council had visibility of this problem in March last year. They could have started down a different route and chose not to. It was a decision that was made.
You have a point of order, Councillor Watson.
Feels this is getting political. He even said Green councillors are going to be voting for this, and I feel that that's not appropriate at this time. I mean, I'm a bit fed up with the local plan being used as a political football. So apologies if it's not a political point of order, but it certainly feels like one for me. I'm getting really tired. I want to go home and I want to get on with the other things on the agenda.
I do think, Councillor Watson, you did have a point. I think that we don't know how everyone's going to vote in the chamber, and we are trying to stick with the rules. So I think, Councillor Davis, you know that as well as I do. So I think that's unfortunate. I don't have anyone else indicating they wish to speak in the debate. So I'm going to ask Councillor Braun, a seconder, to speak, and then Councillor Turner to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've rehearsed at length the importance of the local plan and all the arguments relating to that. I suppose the reason why we find ourselves in this situation, the reality of the decision we're being asked to take today, relates to national government targets, which we are required to implement, and the national framework, national planning policy framework, and the requirements of the national planning inspectors. If we did have free rein to decide how development was allocated, how housing and economic development and public transport and indeed private transport was organised in the district, then it clearly would not be in this way. However, the local plan is extremely important to the district. It's important to our residents, it's important to businesses, and it's about protecting green spaces, it's about delivering high quality and sustainable housing, it's about securing the future prosperity of our district. The planning inspectors have required us to continue with this work, and so we will be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you. Only to say that this recommendation is in line with both officers and inspectors' recommendations, and I hope that members will be able to support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote now. Thank you.
To read out the results on this one.
Yeah.
I'm just not in the room, so.
Oh.
He's not in the room.
He can't vote then, can he?
No, he's not in the room, so just don't count.
Okay. So, say we have yes 24, no 9, and abstentions 1. So the vote is carried. Thank you. We have just gone to 10 o'clock, and as I said, we did have a 10-minute break, so we'll be at the 3-hour limit at 10:10. And I suggest before we go on to the next item, if councillors are happy to take a vote on whether we extend the meeting. So I'm going to ask you all if you're happy to vote to extend beyond the 3 hours. So all those in favour, please. I think we'll do that as a show of hands. So all those in favour. We're going to have to count. Oh, Robin, Councillor Layfield, do you want to just stay there for a minute? Do we need to count? Yeah, do you want to count? Do you want to do it as an electronic vote?
Just enough. Just do a quick electronic.
Okay, we'll do an electronic vote just to be sure. So all those in favour of extending beyond the 3 hours? Oh. No.
Bit close. That's all. It's going. If it's not voted, nothing's left to do.
Okay, so it has been carried. Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Ask them, it might be easier if we were running on summertime instead of winter time. We're trying to change that.
Oh, fair point. Okay, sorry, it's just after 10. We're going to move on now to item 11, which is updates to the Constitution. And I'm going to ask Councillor Keith Pearson, who's our chair of a Constitutional Working Group, to present the report. Thank you.
Never mind, the end is nigh. You have in front of you the report compiled by the monitoring officer on behalf of the working group of the Constitution. As you're all aware, over the last couple of years, we've gone methodically through every aspect of the Constitution, and we're now finished, I believe. Correct? Well, it's a working document, so we've got to start again. It's like the Forth Bridge. I think it's quite obvious there's a lot of changes in there. Many of them are cosmetic. What has been sought to be done this time is to bring things right up to date so it ensures that terminology of roles within the council are correct and stuff like that. We don't believe there's anything contentious in there whatsoever. However, at this moment in time, there are three things I'd like to mention. The terms of reference for committees have been updated by heads of services, and they are high level and not intended to be a comprehensive list of everything a committee might deal with. And also, since publication of the papers, I've now been advised that the reference to the appointment of a member of the Strategy and Resources Committee as chair of the Strategic Planning Advisory Board is incorrect. This will be updated and it will reflect that the appointment is actually made by the Environment Committee. And in the first bullet point in the Environment Committee terms of reference, that's been updated to read strategic planning as opposed to strategic planning of the local plan, to reflect the wider role of the committee in this area, e.g. neighbourhood development plans, habitat mitigation strategies, etc. So it's not just purely to the local plan. Those are the three things that have been highlighted to say to you, and those two areas of correction, one has been done and the other one is about to be done before it goes into print effectively. So there we go. That's from my point of view. Any questions I'll take if I can answer them. But on the chairing of this committee for the last 2 years, it's over and out.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Do we have any questions? I can't see any. Okay, all right. I'll read out the decision then, which is Council resolves to approve the revised Section 2 meetings of the Council and Section 4 scheme of delegation of the Constitution. Do you have a proposer, Councillor Pearson, and a seconder, Councillor Sutter-Kennedy? Councillor Sutter-Kennedy, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right to speak?
I'll reserve the right, thank you.
Okay. In which case we'll move to the debate. Anyone wish to speak in the debate? Councillor Davis.
I only wanted to reiterate what I said earlier. None of us want to sit on Constitution Committee. It's not the most exciting place, and I think we should thank those that do, and particularly Keith, who has done this for a long time. Certainly, when I've been in this role as leader of this group, the first person I call when I've got a question about Constitution is Keith, and we should be very, very grateful to him and to Claire, who's also moving on, for the very hard work on a very dull subject.
Surely it's not done. I've been on the Constitution Working Group. Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Stephen's just said, and thank you very much to Keith. I know you put a lot of time and a lot of energy into it, and your fellow members, and to Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the debate? If not, I'll ask Councillor Sutter-Kennedy a seconder.
Thank you. I think most of it's been said. I would strongly recommend the incoming council to read this before they start arguments in the chamber and in committee for that matter. But the changes there have all been agreed. There are one or two minor points that might have to be brought to the annual general meeting of the new council. But that is for next year, not this year, rather this next several years what I'm talking about. I did have a quiet word with the monitoring officer with regard to independent personnel on the audit committee, things like that, which might need a little more discussion. Other than that, I've gone through this and I haven't fallen over with shock or anything. I think it's perfectly acceptable all round. I would like to commend Councillor Pearson for his hard work. He has, with infinite patience on occasion, chaired the Constitution Working Group. And I have to tell you, those of you who think it's boring is because you haven't read the Constitution. Once you've read it, you might want to pay a little more attention. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, would you like to sum up?
Well, as I said, I think it's the actual constitution changes have been said. I would just like to thank those members that have sat on the Constitution Working Group along with myself. I think there's been about 3 people apart, well, 2 people apart from myself have been constant. Councillor Studdock Kennedy and Councillor Matty Ross, who unfortunately can't be here, and I'll thank them for their contribution, and some of the other people that have come and gone during that period of time, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Cornell, Councillor Kay, late Councillor Kay, I can't remember how many others. Oh, Councillor Hurst. Oh, Councillor Hurst, no, he's not there. And so thank you very much for all of your input. It was quite interesting because an awful lot of our meetings took place over a period of time through COVID and stuff like that towards the end, all on Zoom, and they're not the easiest. I don't care what anybody says. I was much happier the last meeting we had when we were back in a room. So thank you for all your help, Claire, and before you, the other monitoring officers. And I recommend that we approve this.
Thank you. In which case, we'll go to the vote now. Looks like it's unanimous. There you are, Keith. You got the unanimous vote through the chamber. So, well done, and thank you very much for all your work. I just want to echo the words everyone else has. Sorry, do you want to put your microphone on? Apologies.
I'm going to leave at this point, so I've a bit of a problem with my eyes. I did tell Claire earlier, but I'd stay for this. And I'd just like to wish everyone the best for next week that's standing, and it's been a privilege to know everybody else.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for staying until this item. Right, we'll move on to item number 12, which is the Gloucestershire City Region Board, and I'm going to invite Councillor Braun as leader of the council to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. The local authorities in Gloucestershire have been working together to coordinate economic development activity across the county since the establishment of the Gloucestershire Economic Growth Joint Committee in 2014. This was a statutory joint committee which also oversaw the allocation of pooled funding from the Business Rates Pilot through the Strategic Economic Development Fund, also known as SEDEF. The inter-authority agreement behind the joint committee was extended several times, and you may recall that this was brought to previous council meetings to extend the life of the joint committee, which has now ceased to exist. Members will also recall that for some time Leadership Gloucestershire has been developing a vision to replace the joint committee and the three other boards set up to deliver the county's former Vision 2050 with one board, the Gloucestershire City Region Board, to develop and deliver a vision for the future economic success of the whole of the Gloucestershire economic area. It's fair to note that these three boards rarely, if ever, met. The report sets out the purpose of the board at section 2 and the principles behind the board at section 3. Appendix 1 sets out the board's proposed terms of reference, including details of its proposed purpose, powers and administrative arrangements. It's proposed that the board membership will be elected members from each of the 7 local authorities in the county and that it will be chaired by Gloucestershire County Council. Each member will have an equal vote. There's a proposed protocol that although the board decisions will be by majority, the board will not make a decision that impacts on one council's area without that council's agreement. The work of the board would be supported by the county senior officer group. The report proposes that Stroud District Council's elected member representative is the leader of the council, and if the leader is unable to attend, their nominated member from the council's administration. As leader, I've represented the council at the Economic Growth Joint Committee and Leadership Gloucestershire meetings, with the deputy leader attending when I'm unavailable. The board would administer the Strategic Economic Development Fund, as noted above, and that's explained at section 4, and Appendix 2 sets out the new scrutiny arrangements in the report. Article 10 of our Constitution recognises the Council's power to establish joint arrangements with other local authorities. So this evening we're asked to agree to the establishment of a City Region Board and to delegate authority to the Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer in consultation with Leader of the Council to finalise and complete the inter-authority agreement, terms of reference and other key documents. I will certainly be looking for key changes to the draft terms of reference, if indeed I am leader at that point, to take into account the economic and skills opportunities of the low carbon economy in Gloucestershire, the wider context of the climate and nature emergency, and some specific local challenges relating to demography and our ageing population. All of the councils in the county are considering similar reports, and all councils would need to agree to the establishment of the board, which I trust will get the support of all councillors tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Sutherland Kennedy.
Thank you. I think it may be that I should address this to the Chief Executive, but maybe you can do it, Catherine. Can you please explain to me the difference between this organisation as proposed and Gloucestershire First? And what is to happen to the executive of Gloucestershire First as a result of forming this? And this is the third question, as required, this Gloucestershire First, according to the internet, ceases to function on the 1st of May. So if there isn't agreement amongst the 7 districts, or rather the county and the 6, what happens? Could I have an answer to those 3, please?
I think I'll go to the leader in the first instance, and then she can refer to the chief.
Sorry, wait a minute, just a minute. Try again, please.
I'll go to the leader in the first instance, who may be able to answer your question, and she can refer to the chief exec if needed. Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland Kennedy. I think it was announced over a year ago by the government that the LEPs, the Gloucestershire First Local Enterprise Partnership, would cease to exist at the end of the previous financial year. So they have known for some time that their time is limited. They, interestingly, I think the government did a consultation about what the impacts would be of abolishing the local enterprise partnerships after they announced that they were going to be abolished. But anyway, in any case, they have been wrapped up within the county council the transition period, which has involved the chief executive of the LEP becoming a director at the county council. And I think it was the 1st of March that those new arrangements formally started. Thank you.
That. Just confirmation. Did you say that the chief executive of Gloucestershire First is now a director of the county council? Have I understood that correctly? Thank you very much.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions? I can't see any. Okay, I'm going to have to read the decision out now, which is quite long. So, apologies. Was there a question? Sorry. Oh, can I take it as read? Do you think it's quite complicated? Yeah, I think it's quite detailed, and it's there up on the screen, and you've got your papers as well. So hopefully everyone's happy to take that as read. Do we have a proposer? Yes, Councillor Braun, and a seconder, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bennett, do you wish to speak now or later? No? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'll just say that it's taken quite a while to get to this stage. So I think we should all just agree it, and hopefully it will work, because it will work well in the future. Sorry.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome this. I think there is a challenge in the change of organisation, and certainly the Chief Executive, the G First, is now part of the senior leadership team at the County Council and having impact there. My only regret is, did we really have to call it a city region board, as we're in Stroud and we don't feel we have any cities, and I've always worried about that, but I'm just being a pedant, I suspect.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, it's just a small comment really, and it also applies for the following item, which is I support it, I won't say wholeheartedly, but I think I support it in general, and most of the principles contained within it. There's just a slight question I have, I suppose, on whether or not this should be done now prior to the local elections, which are next week, and also with the knowledge that we have potentially a change of government in a few months' time. So, I mean, I'm broadly supportive, but I just think the timing is a bit questionable.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Doesn't seem so. In which case, I'll ask Councillor Braun to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to respond to the issues around the title of the group, certainly the Forest of Dean are not happy about being called the city region, as you can imagine. There was some discussion about it, but it was with the leader of the county council who was insisting it had to be a city region. I think it's quite an old-fashioned term, really. We should call it something better. And as and when the Greens take control of the county council, I'm sure we'll do that. But for the moment, that's what it is. It's an opportunity just to formalise working arrangements together. It's good that we can all meet together and talk about county-wide issues. There are a number of issues, including transport and other things that we need to talk about. And I would encourage everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. We'll move to the vote now. Unanimous. Very good. Right. Swiftly moving on to item 13, which is the County Deal and Devolution Memorandum of Understanding. And Catherine Braun, as Leader of the Council, I'm going to ask you to introduce this as well.
Sorry about this, I've got another rather dull county council paper to print. So this one is about Gloucestershire County Council seeking the support of all 6 district and borough councils to pursue a county deal for Gloucestershire. The autumn statement in November last year, during the autumn statement, the Chancellor announced the intention of the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities to offer Level 2 devolution deals to 7 county areas, including Gloucestershire. A Level 2 deal means a deal without a directly elected mayor across a county. So in the budget in March this year, Level 2 devolution deals were announced for Buckinghamshire, Warwickshire and Surrey. It's understood that the plan is for the other 4, including Gloucestershire, to follow soon. So the other counties are Somerset, Oxfordshire and Hertfordshire, as set out in paragraph 1.5 of the report. The proposed benefits of a county deal for Gloucestershire are relatively limited, and they are set out in section 2 of the report. It's understood that these are off-the-peg, non-negotiable benefits. The most financially significant of these benefits is the transfer of the adult education budget of £10 million. The former G1 LEP functions are already integrated in the County Council, as we have just discussed, and there is some reference to climate change responsibilities, although it is uncertain whether any powers on that front would actually be devolved. One of the main concerns of the district and borough council leaders has been that this proposed county deal provides for county council strategic oversight and effectively control over our UK shared prosperity funding allocated to the districts and boroughs. The Devolution Memorandum of Understanding at Appendix 1 provides reassurance to us as districts and boroughs in respect of the controls that the County Council intends to leave with us. It confirms that the district and borough councils will continue to have control over the UK Shared Prosperity Fund that we have allocated for the remaining year of its funding. Beyond this financial year, the future of the UK SPF is uncertain anyway and will be a matter for the government after the general election. The leader of each district and borough is asked to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, and as the leader of the council, I'm seeking your approval this evening to sign the MOU on the council's behalf. This so-called devolution deal does not really make a huge difference, and it certainly doesn't involve any significant devolution of power or funding to Stroud District, as the term would imply. It doesn't enable decisions to be made closer to local people or communities as we would like. However, it's a small step forwards towards more collaborative working, and there should be some benefits for the adult education budget. If this county deal is progressed, it's expected that the Gloucestershire City Region Board, previously discussed, will play a role in finalising and administering the county deal. I hope you'll be able to support me in signing the Memo of Understanding in relation to this proposed county deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I think you've answered this actually in your comments just now, but I wanted to ask, what difference does it make to us as a district council, if any?
I can't see any really. I mean, I don't see any particular benefits. Devolution, it doesn't seem to transfer any powers close to the people or give us any additional budgets. It just protects the budget that we've got. I mean, it'd be interesting to explore. It does reference a couple of items around land assembly and something else to do with Trying to remember two other vague points which were in there, but it would be interesting to explore whether there are indeed any potential benefits, but we'll wait and see. And certainly for adult education, it might be helpful that we can allocate that spending where we feel it's most needed in Gloucestershire, rather than that being allocated by national government.
Thank you. Any other questions? I can't see any. In which case, I'll read the decision, which is: the council resolves to agree to the leader of the council, on behalf of the council, signing the devolution memorandum of understanding at Appendix 1 to this report with Gloucestershire County Council in respect of the proposed county deal for Gloucestershire. Do you have a proposer, Councillor Braun, and a seconder, Councillor Bennett? Councillor Bennett, do you wish to speak now, or no? Okay. Does anyone wish to speak in the debate? Councillor Davis.
I just wanted to say, I think the leader summed it up. It makes not a huge difference to anything at this point. There's a whole debate as to what could be done going forward, but I think this is really only going to impact adult education and nothing else. But it's a good thing as a start.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate? I don't see anyone. Councillor Bennett, as seconder, do you want to speak? And then I'll ask Councillor Brown to sum up.
Yeah, I think we should vote in favour of this, definitely. I think if anything, it just will hopefully bring a more collaborative approach with working with the county, working with us. So yeah, I'm in favour of this.
Councillor Braun, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, thank you. I've just located it's paragraph 2, where it sets out the proposed benefits to Gloucestershire of a county deal, which includes land assembly and compulsory purchase powers between the local planning authority, county council and Homes England, as well as local skills improvement programmes. So there's some potential to explore those options and find out a little bit more what they would mean. This memorandum of understanding will allow us to protect the UK Shared Prosperity Fund that we have allocated to important local projects. So I would encourage everyone to support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to the vote. And that's passed. Thank you. Right, Catherine, you'll be glad to see you have a break now from presenting reports, and we're going to move to item 14, appointment of a monitoring officer. This report seeks the appointment of a new monitoring officer, Hayley Sims, and Hayley has kindly joined us this evening. And so could I ask her to quickly stand up so everyone can say hello? And just wondering if she's been sitting at the back very quietly all this time. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I'm going to ask Cathy O'Leary as Chief Executive to present the report.
Thank you very much. So as we know, very sadly, our current monitoring officer, Claire Hughes, is leaving us, and the council is required to appoint a monitoring officer. So back when we started with our One Legal partnership in 2020, there was always an ambition for One Legal to provide us with monitoring officer services, but at that particular point in time, One Legal couldn't resource it. They're in a completely different position now. So with Claire leaving us, we've taken the opportunity to slightly recast the way that we do things. And we will be contracting with One Legal to buy monitoring officer services. So this report seeks two things. First of all, to appoint Hayley Sims as the designated monitoring officer from One Legal for Stroud District Council. And secondly, to enter into a secondment agreement arrangement with One Legal so that we can do that, because it's not actually set out in the agreement that we have very specifically with One Legal at the moment. So Hayley has supported as Deputy Monitoring Officer on a number of occasions. Some of you will have seen her when Claire's appointed her in her place, and Hayley is very keen to take up that particular position. You'll notice it's for a period of 1 year. That's because there are some consequential changes around the Corporate Director and Monitoring Officer leaving us that I'll come to in the next report, but the 1 year gives us a chance to reflect, see if it's working for us, and then make that a more regular appointment, a permanent appointment if we wish to do so at that point. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, any questions around this? I don't seem to see any. So Apologies, Nigel, can't start again.
Sorry, very quickly, when does the new monitoring office start? Because I've got an idea when the present one leaves, but when does the new one start?
1st of May.
Thank you.
Thank you. So day before the election.
Thank you. I'll read out the decision, which is the council resolves that A, Hayley Sims be designated monitoring officer for the council in accordance with section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989 with effect from the 1st of May 2024 for an initial period of 1 year. And B, the chief exec be authorised to enter into a secondment agreement with One Legal via Tewkesbury Borough Council to second the above mentioned One Legal officer to Stroud District Council. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Braun, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Turner, thank you. Councillor Turner, do you wish to speak now? No. Councillor... Right, okay. Does anyone wish to debate this? Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
I don't want to debate it. I just want to take the opportunity, if I may, to thank Claire for her efforts where I've been concerned. We've been working closely for the period of time you've been here, sometimes to your chagrin, I've no doubt. But anyway, I want to say a sincere thank you because it's made life relatively easy in terms of understanding the problems I get presented with. So many thanks and good luck for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Turner, did you wish to speak? Yeah.
Only to thank Hayley for her heroic effort in making it this far tonight, and may all your other meetings be much shorter. Welcome.
Room because she's been
Yeah, she's left the room during this. No, just because of this item. Obviously, not. Yeah, just for the item, not because she's. Yeah, so she will be back. I hope. Councillor Brown, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you. I'm very pleased to see that this issue has been resolved. Very sad, obviously, to lose Claire. And again, thank you to Claire for all the work that she's been doing across so many different areas of the council's work, whether that's in relation to standards or whether it's in relation to providing us with legal advice on the many matters that come to council. So we will very much miss you, and Cheltenham are very lucky to have you. I hope you enjoy it there. I'm delighted to have Hayley on board. I do attend the One Legal Management Board, I think it's called now, with Andrew, and they're really flourishing as an organisation, and they certainly provide us with good legal support, and it's great that Hayley is able to come to us from One Legal. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote now. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. I'm afraid we're nearly there, but not quite. So moving on to item 15, organisational changes and...
Let's take a slight pause whilst a couple of officers leave the room.
Yes. So we're going to ask the directors to leave the council chamber for this item. That's okay. Thank you both. I'll hand over to our Chief Executive to present this report now.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report addresses some of the other consequential changes as a result of the departure of our corporate director and monitoring officer, because you'll notice that if you read the report that there are a number of other things that Claire Hughes has been doing for us. So the first of those is looking at her duties as the data protection officer for the council. That is a post that we are required to nominate an officer of the council to do. We could choose to buy that service from One Legal, but actually we have got a very good information and governance officer already who's been working extremely closely with the monitoring officer on this, and this is a development opportunity for that officer. So we seek to make that particular officer the data protection officer for the council as well. That's set out in section 2. Section 3 of the report looks at some of the other responsibilities that Claire has taken on for us, and you'll notice that most of those are delegated to other officers of the council, principally the head of corporate policy and governance. So that, as you know, is Hannah Emery. So she'll take on some of those responsibilities there. Section 4 of the report is the reason why we've asked the directors to leave the room. because I've been considering the implications for the monitoring officer and corporate director leaving us on the rest of the team. It's unsettling, I think, when any member of the team leaves, and I've been thinking about how to move the team into its next iteration of life. So what I would like to do, I'm asking for your support for this evening, is to create the role of Deputy Chief Executive. This would be, if you like, a bolt-on to one of our existing strategic directors, but it would nominate somebody to be my deputy in my absence. And also, I think you can see it's probably a very good developmental opportunity for somebody. And of course, I do need to think about succession planning. So it's important as councillors as well that we think about what my succession plan might be as I edge ever closer to retirement. I'm not thinking of retiring anytime soon. You're welcome to offer to pay me off if you like, but hopefully not after the election. So the way I would really like to run this process would be to involve, as we have done for all of our strategic directors, is to ask the group leaders to play a role in that final selection and to run that process probably at some point over the summer. But because it's allied to the monitoring officer and corporate director leaving us, I thought I would bring that report now. I do need your permission because, of course, we make a little bit of a saving from the corporate director and monitoring officer leaving us and contracting some services from one legal and some services putting to officers in-house. But there is an additional piece of funding that I'm asking for, and that is to add to the Deputy Chief Executive's salary. So you'll notice that there's a discrepancy between the salary there and what I'm asking for, and that's because of the on-costs that go with any salary. So that's pension funds and what have you as well. If you chose not to support this, we probably would be able to manage to sort out the data protection officer another way round. But I think you probably all recognise that this is a very good development opportunity for one of our directors. Each of them will have the opportunity to put their hat into the ring, and you would be involved in that process. So that is what I'm asking your permission for. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to ask.
Any questions from councillors? Kennedy.
Very quickly, do I take it that Hayley Mills will now become strategic director and therefore you're choosing from three? Or yes, three.
We're appointing Hayley Sims as our monitoring officer, and she will be part of the strategic leadership team when she joins it. The opportunity for the Deputy Chief Executive is being ring-fenced to our existing strategic directors. Three of them. We have three strategic directors. Each will have the opportunity to put their hat in the ring for that. That is HR's process advice. We need to do that. Thank you.
Any other questions on this report? I can't see anyone. Okay, I'll read out the decision so councillors are clear what we're voting on. The council resolves to A, note the arrangements for the redistribution of the responsibilities of the corporate director and monitoring officer not covered by report to appoint a new monitoring officer. I think that was slightly different in the... hang on, what item this is? Hang on a minute.
It is fine.
Is it?
That's what it says on the screen. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay, sorry. Not recovered by report. I feel like there's a verb missing there, but okay. Not recovered by report to appoint a new monitoring officer. B, support the process outlined in this report to identify and appoint one strategic director as Deputy Chief Executive, including the involvement of all group leaders or their nominated representatives and the Chief Executive in the final selection panel. And C, add £16,000 to the budget from 24-25 to support the arrangements set out in this report. Do we have a proposer for this? Catherine Braun, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Layfield, thank you. Councillor Layfield, do you wish to speak now? Or yeah.
Yeah. In short, I think this makes a lot of practical, pragmatic sense. We're developing our workforce, we're retaining our workforce, it's reducing our costs. We're using strategic placement of our assets. So data protection officer is a great role that we created there. I just think this is really a really sensible direction for us to take.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in debate? No, I don't see anyone. In which case, Councillor Braun, would you like to sum up? Thank you.
Thank you. Encourage everyone to support this evening. I think it's worth acknowledging that data protection is a very important role, and some of the other work that Claire has been undertaking, such as setting up the corporate governance group, is also going to be taken forward by existing officers, so expanding the work that's happening already, and certainly in terms of the Deputy Chief Executive role, for the reasons that Cathy set out. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of strengthening the leadership team. Thank you.
Thank you. In which case, we'll move now to the vote. Has everyone voted? And that's passed. Thank you, councillors. Okay, we're moving on to the final item, you'll be pleased to know. Item 16, which is the Yubico 5-year vision and business plan 2024-25, and I'm afraid, Cathy, you have to present this report as well.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware I bring this report every year. So every year, Yubico prepares its business plan for the year ahead in the context of its 5-year vision. We're coming towards the end of that 5-year vision. Members will know that as the council's shareholder representative, I can actually sign the written authority to agree the business plan. But for transparency, I choose to bring it to full council so that members have got an opportunity to see what the business plan is proposing and to note that, and then I will sign, providing there are no major objections to that. So this isn't the first time members will have seen it. The Managing Director of Yubico came to Environment Committee in December and presented the main themes for the business plan for this year. The draft business plan was circulated in February and all group leaders have had the opportunity to see it, and the final version of the business plan is attached here. I'm happy to take any questions, but unless there's anything significant, I do propose to sign the written memorandum of understanding on that in my capacity as stakeholder representative for the council. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't think so. Okay, in which case the decision is the council resolves to note the Yubico business plan for 2024-25. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Turner, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Layfield. Councillor Layfield, do you wish to speak on now or? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I recommend we note this. I think it's a great business plan. Yubico are working really well for us. They look after the workers. Yeah, let's get behind it.
Thank you. Councillor Turner, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Yes, and as Cathy said, this came to Environment Committee, received universal approval. I'm always impressed by how much Yubico's values align with ours as a council and our council plan, and working closely with that team and with our finance staff, it's been really good to see the relationship continue to evolve in a positive direction. So very much in support of this tonight. Thank you.
I feel like I jumped the gun there and I forgot to offer councillors. Did anyone wish to speak in debate? I don't see anyone indicating, so I went to you quite quickly there, Chloe. I think everyone's looking really tired, so. Okay, in which case, thank you for that, and we'll move on to the vote. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Travel safely home. Good luck to everyone who's standing for election next week, and thank you so much to everyone who is going to have a well-earned break. Thank you, Doina. Oh my God, I flat myself.